Welcome to my channel. All the stories on this channel are fictional and created for entertainment. If you enjoy the story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me bring more stories like this. Thank you for listening. Her husband cheated. Her family blamed her. And everyone expected her to forgive him. But this time, Sophia refused. She was done being the obedient wife, the perfect daughter, the woman who sacrificed everything for others. If the world wanted her to stay silent and endure it all, then this time, Sophia would choose herself. Sophia, this promotion opportunity is very rare, and the educational resources there are better, so the children can receive a better education. The moment Sophia regained consciousness, a deep baritone voice rang in her ears, full of confidence, as if certain that Sophia wouldn't refute what he said. It was less a tone of discussion and more an announcement of this established fact. Sophia frowned slightly, pressed her temples a couple of times, and replied calmly, "I'm a little tired and want to rest for a while. We can talk about these things later." "Okay, then you rest for a bit. I'll go pack my things. I need to tell Mom and Dad about moving the whole family to Shanghai. You should also think about when to go to the company to complete the resignation procedures. Don't drag it out too long. My schedule is very tight. I've only been given half a month." Once the room was completely quiet, Sophia suppressed the aftereffects of her headache and quietly began to browse through the memories belonging to her. This Sophia is not that original Sophia. She inherits the original owner's memories and even senses the emotions left behind. Since she has taken over the other person's body, Sophia thinks that, without violating her principles, she should try her best to make up for the original owner's regrets. This thought seemed to appear suddenly in Sophia's mind, and her intuition told her it was important. Sophia's original memories were simple, even monotonous. Her memories from childhood revolved around a boy named Victor. They were childhood sweethearts, attending elementary, middle, high school, and even university together. Sophia's grades were originally excellent. She was the top scorer in the province's liberal arts college entrance exam. But for Victor, she gave up some of the most prestigious universities and chose the same university as him. Although it was also a key university, there was still a difference. Both families knew each other well, so naturally, they married after graduation and had a child the following year. Now, their second child has been born, making them a family with both a son and a daughter, and Victor's career is thriving. Both families also get along harmoniously. In other people's eyes, Sophia is incredibly lucky, a true winner in life. If things continue like this, Sophia might even think she's the luckiest woman in the world. At the prime of her life, she married for love, with a considerate husband, adorable children, and a harmonious family. But there are no what-ifs. The world is ever-changing, and Sophia never imagined that such a wonderful life, after spoiling her rotten, would so cruelly abandon her. In her 30s, her husband, now a representative of the South China region, encountered the 18-year-old Sophia, and his love blossomed again. It all happened so suddenly, Sophia could only humbly beg Victor not to be so cruel. But Victor was determined to rekindle the long-lost passion. Victor said, "Sophia, I can no longer find the feeling of love in you. Every day I come home from work to your disheveled appearance and the incessant crying of our child, which makes me very irritable." Victor said, "Sophia, we don't lack money. Why can't you dress yourself up a little better? How can I possibly take you out to meet my colleagues and clients like this?" Victor said, "Sophia, you graduated from a prestigious university, so why aren't you as ambitious as other wives? You're so boring, you can't keep up with me anymore. We lack common ground." Every word Victor spoke afterward was a sharp blade piercing her heart, leaving it scarred. She wanted to roar, to explain. But all words seemed utterly pale and powerless before a heart that had been corrupted. Victor had created a comfortable and safe haven for her, only to cruelly smash it to pieces. Sophia ultimately chose the most unbearable path. She developed severe depression. The constant pain became unbearable. She still had a chance to stand up again, but the condemnation and complaints from her dearest parents and family during this ordeal became the final straw. She just felt sorry for her two children. If only. Sophia wanted to live for herself for once. Sophia's obsession wasn't deep, it was faint, tinged with melancholy. From childhood, she had always been the obedient child in the eyes of others and her parents, following their arrangements step by step, studying, dating, working, and getting married. But did she truly have no hidden regrets or resentments? In a corner of her memory, Sophia discovered that the original owner's greatest desire was to attend Peking University, but later, to satisfy her parents and childhood friend, she chose Suzhou University in the same city. After graduation, she also had ambitions to realize her aspirations, but was persuaded to return by her parents, relatives, and friends. She chose a stable and secure job, one that would allow her to better take care of her family, children, and Victor. It seemed that all her decisions and choices in her life were made for her by others, until her death. After regaining the original owner's memories, Sophia felt familiar with the current situation. It should be the time when Victor was promoted and dispatched to Shanghai. The original owner of this body was, of course, happy for Victor. The next day, she submitted her resignation to the company and then, with her 5-year-old and 2-year-old children, followed Victor to Shanghai. Leaving their original city and without the help of their parents and in-laws, Sophia and her 2 young children went through quite a period of chaos before finally settling down. However, Victor did not understand or offer any help. All he felt was that the original owner of this body had not provided him with a good and comfortable support system. In truth, everything leaves a trace. The original owner didn't sense it, but Sophia could keenly perceive it. At this moment, Victor was no longer the man who had always been so protective of her. The domineering tone Victor had used earlier made Sophia feel uneasy. When dinner time arrived, the dining table in the living room was empty, devoid of delicious food and its usual enticing aroma. Victor entered, put down his briefcase, frowned slightly, and glanced curiously at the deserted dining room. It was the weekend, and the 2 children had already been picked up by Victor's parents. Usually, at this time, Sophia would prepare a sumptuous dinner while the children were away, reliving the time they spent alone together. Although Victor wasn't particularly fond of this, he felt that such an atmosphere needed a unique setting, like a high-class Western restaurant, listening to elegant piano music and sipping distinctive red wine. Unfortunately, Sophia always insisted on eating at home. Although Sophia was a good cook, after eating like this for so many years, Victor felt that sometimes she needed a change of pace. However, Sophia was extremely insistent on eating at home, so Victor let her have her way. Sophia. Victor loosened her tie and then knocked twice on the bedroom door. Are you there? The bedroom door suddenly opened from the inside, startling Victor, whose hand was still raised. Why didn't you cook today? Perhaps it was Sophia's strange expression, but Victor felt a surge of annoyance, which unconsciously showed in his voice. Sophia raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised. As expected of the husband who had been with the original owner for so many years, he noticed even the slightest change in her. However, despite this, Sophia didn't intend to make any changes, let alone live according to the original owner's original personality and behavior patterns. Let's eat out today. Cooking is too greasy, Sophia said casually, then walked to the shoe counter and put on a pair of high heels. Victor's irritation grew stronger. Fortunately, he had excellent self-control, and after a while, he forcibly suppressed this strange feeling deep inside, assuming it was just a problem that arose during the work handover earlier that day. Once he calmed down, Victor noticed that Sophia, who was already waiting at the door, looked quite different from usual. She had changed into a fitted dress, her hair was all down, and she didn't wear any extra accessories, yet she exuded charm. Sexy and alluring. Why did you bother to dress up today? Victor's eyes were full of admiration, but he still couldn't help but tease her. Sophia just tugged at the corners of her mouth, a faint smile that flashed by. Sophia usually didn't dress up because it was inconvenient. Exquisite and beautiful clothes would only get stained with stains when holding a child. It wasn't that Sophia didn't want to become more beautiful, but rather that she couldn't and didn't have the time or energy to focus on herself. "Isn't she pretty?" Sophia replied, opening the door and walking out. Victor smiled beautifully and quickly followed, saying happily, "How could my wife not be beautiful?" Victor wasn't exaggerating at all. Sophia was very beautiful, the kind of beauty that was stunningly gorgeous without being vulgar. From elementary school to university, she had always been a campus beauty. Victor couldn't help but think of the effort he had put into shooing away the flies that swarmed around Sophia when he was young, and couldn't help but chuckle. This made the atmosphere between the two seem exceptionally harmonious on the surface. Victor was 1.8 meters tall, handsome, and exuded the air of an urban elite. Walking together with Sophia, they truly looked like a golden couple. Seeing the glances, both overt and covert, directed at Sophia along the way, Victor felt a surge of smugness. Sometimes, she would even put on airs and nod pretentiously at the staring man. It was infuriating. "What are you looking at?" "This is my wife, the one I've officially recognized." Sophia, walking ahead, noticed the constant little movements behind her, but despite this, she glanced at them and ignored them. "What do you think of what we discussed this morning?" Victor asked, somewhat annoyed. Sophia hadn't uttered a word since the exquisite dishes were served. The smugness that had previously clung to him was now replaced by dissatisfaction. Usually, Sophia would chatter incessantly, driving him crazy. But when she was completely silent, Victor felt uncomfortable all over. Seeing the woman opposite him only focused on enjoying the food, Victor, with a hint of annoyance, broke the silence. Sophia enjoyed her meal. The ingredients at this restaurant were all quite delicious. As for the person opposite her, his emotional state, what did it have to do with her? Sophia swallowed her food, wiped her mouth with a clean white napkin, and then slowly raised her head, saying gently, "It's fine. I'll go to the company tomorrow and resign from my job. But once I'm in Shanghai, what about settling down, the children's schooling? Have you thought about how to handle that? Also, once I'm in Shanghai, I don't plan to just stay at home. Shanghai is a big city, and I plan to go out and see the world." Sophia's words left Victor momentarily speechless. Normally, he wouldn't need to handle these trivial matters himself. Even without Sophia, the adults at home would help him. He only needed to focus on his work. But this time. And what does Sophia mean by saying she doesn't plan to stay at home? Victor was silent for a few seconds, then said with a hint of displeasure, "You don't need to go out and work. I can support you and the children. You just need to take care of the home. You're doing very well now. We just need to maintain this situation." Perhaps it was Sophia's silent attitude that made Victor realize the inappropriateness of his tone. He sighed and softened his voice, saying, "Sophia, the children and I need you." Whenever Victor used this tone, Sophia's heart would always melt, and she would agree to any condition. "Victor, do I love myself?" Victor hadn't recovered from Sophia's sudden change in tone when Sophia continued, "If you love me, shouldn't you support my decisions? Just like what I've always done for you." "Your parents won't agree." As Victor finished speaking, Sophia lowered her eyes, a mocking expression beneath her thick eyelashes. The person opposite her, however, seemed oblivious, continuing her eloquent speech. "Sophia, don't be willful. If Mom and Dad knew, they wouldn't agree. Children's education is so important these days. You're a mother." It seemed the last time Victor had joined her parents in persuading her to find a less demanding job, he had been just as sincere, his words brimming with concern for her. The time before that, getting married right after graduation, and the time before that, filling out college applications. Human nature, so utterly selfish. Sophia curled her lip in boredom, directly interrupting Victor. "I'll talk to my parents myself." Victor had so much more to say, but Sophia's interruption left him speechless, unable to speak, feeling stifled. This was the second time today he had been stunned into silence. Looking at the indifferent Sophia before him, Victor belatedly realized how unfamiliar the person before him was. It was as if the soft outer layer of flesh had been peeled away, revealing a hard shell that was extremely uncomfortable. Sophia ate until she was about 7/10 full before putting down her chopsticks. Victor was still lost in thought and hadn't come to her senses. "I'm done eating." Sophia sat quietly, saying nothing more than that. Oh, then let's go home." Victor's expression wasn't very happy. The wrinkles between her brows could probably trap a fly. Sophia pretended not to notice, gracefully turned around, and walked ahead. Seeing this, Victor's face grew even colder. Until the two of them returned home together, Victor didn't say another word to Sophia. A heavy and oppressive atmosphere filled the space between them. If it were the Sophia of the past, she probably would have already given in to Victor. Victor used this tactic whenever they disagreed, and Sophia could never win against him. Sophia seemed completely oblivious to the strange atmosphere between them, happily fiddling with her smooth fingertips. Her hands were exceptionally beautiful, like fine white jade, making one want to hold them in their hands and caress them. The only flaw was that they weren't delicate enough. Sophia thought, why not get a hand treatment tomorrow and also get a manicure? Such exquisite craftsmanship was something the original Sophia had never tried before. Sophia's parents always felt their daughter was too beautiful, and from a young age, they had tried to outshine her, fearing any unpleasant words from others. The original Sophia was truly filial and obedient, always going along with her parents' wishes, and even the rebellious phase of adolescence seemed to have never occurred. The next day, early in the morning, while Sophia was still deep in sleep, the phone on her bedside table rang like a relentless pager, persistently ringing without stopping for a moment. Sophia stretched lazily before casually glancing at her phone screen. It was a call from her mother. "Sophia, Victor called your father this morning. Your father-in-law had him out for morning tea early this morning. Your father wants you to come back right away." Sophia's mother's voice was unhurried, but the obvious annoyance in her tone was too obvious. Sophia turned off the speakerphone, casually placing the phone on the dressing table. She even had the leisure to style her hair nicely. She wasn't affected by her mother's mood at all. "Mom, I have something to do today, so I won't be coming over." After saying that, she hung up the phone without waiting for the other person on the other end to react. The Victor family of 3 was quite something, using the original owner's parents to suppress her with consummate skill. It's just a pity that the Sophia who cared about them is long gone. She doesn't care anymore. Who can truly control someone else's life? Sophia didn't take her mother's words to heart at all and proceeded with her plans for the day as before. Margaret, who had been abruptly hung up on by her daughter for the first time, was momentarily stunned. Holding the phone in one hand, she remained in a position as if answering a call, until the constant ringing of the phone reminded her that her daughter was showing impatience. Margaret suddenly felt extremely wronged. This child was so inconsiderate of her parents. If Sophia knew, she would probably sigh and say, "She's truly spoiled." Those who are pampered are always fearless and cannot tolerate even the slightest grievance. The Sophia of the past was extremely filial, always obeying her parents, afraid of upsetting them in the slightest. "When Sophia gets back, we'll have to give her a good talking to. You have no idea, when my father-in-law subtly criticized our daughter today, I really wanted to find a hole and disappear. You know, she can't enjoy her peaceful life now. All she thinks about is the outside world, neglecting her children, not taking care of her husband. Does she have any sense of being a mother or wife?" Robert held his teacup, his face still showing indignation. "It's a good thing my son-in-law is so tolerant." Sophia said she's not coming back today. Margaret's words abruptly interrupted Robert's incessant complaints about Sophia. Not coming back? Robert didn't quite believe what his wife had just said, because from childhood to adulthood, Sophia had never once disobeyed them. "Aren't you going to pick up the kids?" The next moment, Robert flew into a rage, his neck and face turned red, shouting, "Aren't you going to pick up the kids? How can we face our in-laws across the street? It's all thanks to your good daughter." Thinking of the 2 elderly people from the Victor family across the street, their forced smiles, Robert felt incredibly angry and surprisingly turned his anger towards Margaret. It was truly baffling. Margaret silently endured it, but in her heart, she thoroughly blamed Sophia, the source of all this trouble. Sophia's resignation from her job went smoothly. After all, it was just a clerical position, dispensable, easily replaceable. As soon as she left the company, Victor's call followed. The call was full of probing. "You should be at home picking up Leo and Emma now." Sophia was impatient with such beating around the bush and said directly, "I haven't gone yet. I have something to do today." "You shouldn't be working overtime today, right? Pick up Leo and Emma on your way home after work. The two kids have been complaining to me that you don't spend enough time with them." "Okay, I'm busy. We'll talk when I get home." Before Victor could say anything more, Sophia hung up the phone. When Victor called back, the phone was always busy. Victor was swamped with work at the company, his phone constantly ringing. When he finally answered, a deafening roar erupted from the other end, immediately drawing surprised and astonished stares from his colleagues. He felt deeply embarrassed, but since the person on the other end was his father, he could only quickly return to his office, covering the phone, and then ask helplessly, "Dad, I'm busy at the company. Why are you calling at this hour?" His father's booming voice came through the receiver. "What's going on with your wife? I've called her over 10 times, and she won't answer. Don't you care about your son and daughter? Look at the time." His father's words reminded Victor of what Sophia had said earlier, that he should pick up the children today. He had thought she was joking. Usually, she was more attentive to the children than anyone else. "It's almost time to get off work. I'll come pick up the kids in a bit," Victor said softly, trying to reassure them. On the other end of the phone, George frowned, clearly dissatisfied. "Where's Sophia? Why should I ask you to pick them up? You're already so busy with work, and she doesn't even know how to be considerate of you. She doesn't even have a job. Is it so hard to ask her to pick up the kids?" Before, George wouldn't have been so angry about Sophia not picking up the children. The main reason was what Victor had told him before, that Sophia had other ideas. In his view, women should stay home to support their husbands and raise their children. He had even disagreed with Sophia going out to find a less demanding job, only giving in to his son's constant pleading. Now that his son has been promoted to another city, parents are always worried. Logically, Sophia should be fully assisting her husband in settling things in. Victor quickly understood the root of her father's concern. Moreover, she herself had caused this situation. He never imagined that this time, Sophia seemed as stubborn as a rock. He thought it would be a simple problem, easily solved with just a word from his in-laws. It had always been like this. But this time, even Sophia's parents were ineffective, and Victor couldn't think of any better way to get Sophia to change her mind. If Sophia were standing here commenting, she would know that everyone's treatment of her was something she had already accepted. What Victor and Sophia's parents relied on was nothing more than Sophia's soft heart and tendency to compromise. On the phone, George kept nagging about his wife's faults, which annoyed Victor. His voice involuntarily rose a few decibels as he spoke. "Dad, stop talking. Sophia had something to do today. I can go pick up the children. It's the same thing." As soon as he finished speaking, Victor realized her attitude towards his parents was problematic and immediately softened his tone, saying, "Wouldn't it be better if I went home to see you and Mom and Dad?" Fortunately, George fell silent and didn't dwell on the matter. He replied calmly, "Then come over after work. Have your mother cook some of your favorite dishes." "Okay." After hanging up with her father, Victor let out a deep sigh of relief. He immediately dialed Sophia's number. Beep, beep, beep. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. Frustrated, Victor haphazardly stuffed her phone back into her pocket, picked up her briefcase, and prepared to leave work. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the office door, and then a fluffy little head peeked in through the crack. "Boss, are you going that way?" "My electric scooter broke down this morning on my way to the company." Chloe's pitiful voice, coupled with her funny expression, immediately relaxed Victor's previously tense face. Although Victor still maintained a serious expression, those who knew him could tell that he was in a good mood. "Let's go, it's on my way. I'll take you home first." Chloe, following behind Victor, couldn't help but flash a V sign behind her back. "Chloe, hitching a ride home with the vice president again?" "Yeah, the boss is so kind. He takes good care of me." Chloe's words revealed no small amount of pride. Don't think everyone's blind to her intentions. That's right, but the vice president is married. So what if he's married? If she could hook up with someone like that, even as a mistress, she'd probably be willing. Besides, even married people get divorced these days. The gossipy remarks of the company's women occasionally reached Chloe's ears. She glanced guiltily at the man walking ahead, then smiled and quickened her pace to catch up. What did it matter if they had a gossip session? In a few days, she'd be able to go to Shanghai with her boss. Boss, thank you so much for today. After getting out of the car, Chloe didn't leave immediately. Instead, she bent down and waved to Victor through the half-open window, her pretty face resembling a blooming rose. For a moment, Victor was momentarily stunned. The woman before him was breathtakingly beautiful. Victor's eyes flickered, but he quickly regained his composure. The fleeting ripple in his heart went unnoticed even by Chloe, who was closest to him. Go back and get some rest. We're heading to Shanghai in a couple of days. Are you all ready? This time we're going to have a tough battle. If you encounter any difficulties, be sure to tell me, and I'll help you solve them. Victor's gentle and considerate voice captivated Chloe. Everything's ready. Don't worry, boss, I definitely won't hold you back. The girl's energetic voice made Victor chuckle softly. Then good luck. Victor didn't know why he had chosen Chloe to accompany him to Shanghai. Chloe wasn't actually the best choice. She wasn't smooth enough, not meticulous enough, but her daily energetic demeanor always reminded him of his university days with Sophia. He couldn't help but always take extra care of her at work. When Victor returned to his parents' house, a delicious meal was already laid out on the table, and his stomach began to rumble. He hadn't eaten anything all day except a bowl of plain porridge. The dinner he had out yesterday had upset his stomach, leaving it uncomfortable all day. Home-cooked meals were much better. Victor's arrival didn't attract much attention from the children playing happily nearby. Leo and Emma glanced at Victor briefly before returning to their toys. You're here. Go wash your hands. The food is ready, Linda said, urging Victor to wash her hands after placing the last dish, steamed sea bass, on the table. George, sitting on the sofa, put down his newspaper and slowly strolled over. Call your in-laws from across the street over for dinner later. Sophia, in a good mood, carried several large shopping bags filled with clothes she had bought for herself. The ones in her original owner's wardrobe were long outdated, and most were classic, dirt-resistant colors like black or gray, completely unsuitable for Sophia's aesthetic. Mom. As soon as she entered, two figures like rocket launchers rushed towards Sophia. Stumbling back a few steps, Sophia managed to steady herself, preventing herself from falling backward, but the shopping bags in her hands could only be carelessly tossed aside. Mom, I missed you so much. Her son, Leo, buried his little face in Sophia's arms, speaking softly and comfortingly. Mom, I miss you so much, so much. The younger daughter, Emma, cried out loudly, her words slightly unclear, as if afraid her brother would steal the spotlight. Sophia, possessing the original owner's memories, couldn't help but feel more patient and affectionate towards the two little ones. She kissed each of their cheeks and replied with a smile, Mommy missed my little darlings too. Although they had only been separated from their mother for 2 days, the two little ones felt as if they had been away for a very long time, clinging to Sophia and chattering incessantly. Leo stared intently at Sophia with bright eyes. Mommy, you look so beautiful today, even more beautiful than Julian's mom at our kindergarten. You must be the most beautiful mom in kindergarten. I have to tell them, my mom is the most beautiful, even more beautiful than a fairy. That makes Julian so proud. My mom is much prettier than his mom. Emma clapped her hands and grinned foolishly, constantly echoing her brother's words. Baby's mom is the most beautiful, the most beautiful. While Sophia was enjoying a harmonious atmosphere, the other side wasn't necessarily in such a good mood. Victor stood not far away, asking abruptly, Did you go shopping today? Compared to this morning, Sophia had completely changed her entire appearance, from head to toe, down to the last strand of hair. Yeah. Look at what you're wearing. Is this how mother should dress? A stern male voice rang out in the room, causing the two children in Sophia's arms to tremble. Only then did Sophia notice that her parents were also there. "I'll take the kids to take a bath first. Mom and Dad are here. You two chat first." Victor quickly took the two reluctant children away from their mother's arms, leaving space for the Sophia family. Sophia stood up, slowly smoothing out the wrinkles on her dress, and turned her gaze to her father, lazily asking, "So how should a mother dress? Don't I look good like this?" Robert was instantly angered by Sophia's attitude, breathing heavily. Looking at her radiant daughter, Margaret disapproved. "Sophia, how can you talk to your father like that? Look around the street. Where do you see mothers dressed like 18-year-old vixens?" Sophia was actually quite curious about the thought processes of her parents. Why had her tone been so off earlier? Wasn't she just being polite? She genuinely didn't know what kind of specific dress a mother should wear. Who gave her that rule? Besides, the outfit she was wearing was the latest style, perfectly neat, no exposed chest, legs, or back. How did it become vixen-like attire? "Is it my fault for being pretty? Go change right now," Margaret whispered to her husband, while constantly giving Sophia meaningful glances. But Sophia seemed blind, completely oblivious to her mother's signals, or rather, she simply didn't care. Seeing his daughter's indifference, Robert's anger, which had just subsided, flared up again. "So, you think you're all grown up now? You think your parents can't boss you around anymore?" Sophia calmly walked past the two of them, too lazy to respond to their words, and pretending not to see the two who were thoroughly angry. "Mom and Dad, it's so late. What brings you here?" Sophia said, taking a few pinches of fine tea leaves from the tea canister on the counter and placing them in a blue and white porcelain teacup. "Victor, that son-in-law, is really something. You two have come all this way, and he hasn't even served you a cup of tea." Sophia's words startled not only her parents, but even Victor, who was hiding behind the door eavesdropping, almost lost his footing. To be honest, Sophia really looked down on Victor's family. She didn't know if they were just carefree and unrefined, or if they simply didn't take Sophia's family seriously. The etiquette seemed particularly unsatisfactory. "Dad, Mom, please have some tea first." Sophia placed the brewed tea on the table, a slight hint of disdain flashing in her eyes. "Fine tea leaves, simply brewed with boiling water. What a waste. I don't want tea. Also, let me tell you, your main task now is to take care of the family and the children. Do you know how embarrassed I was by your father-in-law's words today? Is this how I've always taught you?" Bang! The door slammed shut. Victor rubbed his hands as he walked out of the room, looking embarrassed. "Mom and Dad, you left so soon. How did your chat go?" Sophia glanced at Victor with a half-smile. "Pretty good." Then, she said nothing more. Victor, who was waiting for further details, asked in surprise, "No, nothing. What else could it be? They came to see me, and then left." Sophia's skill at lying through her teeth was already at its peak. In front of Victor, who knew the truth, she could speak as if nothing had happened. It seemed that Sophia's parents really did just want to see their daughter, just as she said. Both of them knew perfectly well why the elders had come. Moreover, the echoes of Robert's booming voice still seemed to linger in his mind. Victor had hoped Sophia's parents could change Sophia's mind, but unexpectedly. "You need to arrange Leo's kindergarten and Emma's early education center as soon as possible. And the accommodation issue, it's best to find a place close to the school, in a good environment, especially with good security." "Anne." Sophia tossed a bunch of troublesome matters to Victor, then casually said, "Arrange them as soon as possible. I'll go check on the children first." Victor hadn't expected that Sophia, after saying she wouldn't care, really wouldn't care about anything. Aside from the special children's meals for the little ones, she didn't even cook. Victor was overwhelmed by the sudden influx of household chores, but with Chloe's help, she finally managed to finish everything before the deadline. "Chloe, thank you so much these past few days. If you want to thank me, then treat me to a meal," Chloe blurted out. Victor smiled and said, "That's only right." She thought to herself that the recently opened, ridiculously expensive private restaurant was pretty good. Chloe's eyes lit up, and she tilted her head mischievously, looking at Victor. Expectantly, "Well, Since you're treating me, I'll be in charge today. Despite Chloe's casual tone, a closer look revealed her apprehension and nervousness. Okay, you're the hero, you decide. To Victor's surprise, Chloe dragged her to the market. Eating outside is expensive and unpalatable. It's better to cook yourself. Besides, your stomach isn't good, Chloe said, while constantly stealing glances at Victor. Such bold yet not subtle stares made Victor feel like his whole body was on fire. Through their interactions, Victor wasn't unaware of Chloe's hidden feelings for him, but he could only smile bitterly, unable to utter any words of advice. After all, the young girl was shy, and he was afraid that if he rashly broke the ice, she would feel very embarrassed. Yes, that was it. But besides these concerns, whether Victor had other thoughts in his heart, only he knew. Beep beep. The phone rang. Victor glanced at the phone screen, turned his back, and gestured to Chloe. I'll take this call. Chloe bit her lip, her fingers twisting incessantly, her eyes filled with resentment, but she could only stomp her foot and walk towards a fresh produce stall not far away. She had seen it all earlier. The caller ID read, "My dear wife." Victor's wife. She hadn't met her yet. However, in her opinion, she had never heard a single word from Victor about his wife. It wasn't hard to guess that she was either unpresentable or a haggard housewife. After all, how many housewives out of touch with society, constantly preoccupied with their children, husbands, and the kitchen, could be outstanding? Men, especially successful men, always need a confidant by their side. Thinking this way, Chloe felt much better. The image of the other woman's haggard face flashed in her mind, and she couldn't help but chuckle. Sophia, wearing a light yellow dress, white shoes, and a pale yellow straw hat, stood at one end of the street corner, happily eating a dozen or so skewers of grilled food. Whispers drifted over from the surroundings, but Sophia pretended not to hear, continuing to devour her food. You go. You go instead. 3 handsome boys stood outside a trendy bubble tea shop not far away, playfully pushing each other, their eyes fixed on Sophia. It's no wonder they reacted this way. Sophia was simply too beautiful. Her outfit today made her look like a pure and beautiful college belle in her early 20s, completely belying that she was over 30 and a mother of 2. No wonder these young men, currently in the throes of infatuation, were so smitten. The barbecue restaurant Sophia had chosen wasn't in a great location, but its delicious food was irresistible. Sophia had searched online for a long time to find it. She was currently at the corner opposite a market. Coincidentally, Victor's conspicuous Mercedes-Benz drove up and caught her eye. The impeccably dressed Victor was hard to imagine as being in this noisy and chaotic environment. However, Sophia's hands reacted faster than her brain. She quickly finished her skewers, wiped her hands and face, then pulled out her phone and started snapping photos of the Mercedes-Benz she knew so well. Unsurprisingly, the woman who got out of the passenger seat, the intimate interaction between the two. So, it all happened so early. After taking the photos, Sophia casually dialed Victor's number. Where are you? Victor, true to his sharp-witted urban elite nature, looked up sharply as soon as the words left his mouth, glancing around nervously. His tone, however, was calm and collected. A colleague at work helped me with a small favor, so I agreed to a small request. What request? Sophia fiddled with her fingernails, seemingly determined to get to the bottom of it. Victor was quite uncomfortable with Sophia's current attitude towards him. He glanced at Chloe, who was selecting seafood not far away, and said indifferently, I'll tell you when we get back. Are the kids behaving well at home? TSK, they're fine. You forgot, Leo went to kindergarten today, and Emma went to her early education class. Sophia's chuckle on the phone reached Victor's ears clearly, making a vein throb on his forehead. Oh, I forgot. I've been so busy lately, my brain is all foggy. Please take care of things at home. I'll make it up to you later. Victor surprisingly praised Sophia's contributions to the family. Sophia couldn't help but think sarcastically, no wonder people say that if a man suddenly becomes soft-hearted towards you, it's because he has done or plans to do something to betray you. This is completely a compensation for his guilt. Okay, that's all. I won't disturb your work anymore. Even after the static from the phone being disconnected rang out, Victor remained rooted to the spot. He disliked Sophia's current attitude. He didn't know what had caused the change. Victor took a deep breath, deciding that he must have a serious talk with Sophia that evening. Unfortunately, his idea was good, but he had no chance to put it into practice. Finished your call? Then come and see. These lobsters are so fat. Should I choose this one or that one? Seeing Victor put down his phone, his expression not looking good, Chloe pretended not to notice, cheerfully pulling him closer, holding up a large lobster in each hand to show him. Victor glanced at it casually, somewhat absent-mindedly. Either is fine. This answer dissatisfied Chloe. But she still knew that to achieve anything, one must not rush things. Chloe slumped down the large lobster in her hand and said in a low voice, "Is there something urgent you need to take care of? Then you should hurry up and get busy, or you can thank me next time." Victor's eyes flickered as she looked at the girl's insincere words. She composed herself and said softly, "It's nothing urgent, and besides, I already promised you. I can't go back on my word, otherwise, how will I have any authority as your boss in the future?" Hearing her words, the girl's eyes lit up instantly, and Victor's mood improved a little. "Hey, beautiful can I add you on WeChat?" After hanging up the phone, Sophia looked up and heard a hesitant male voice coming from in front of her. It was one of the 3 boys outside the milk tea shop. The other 2 were glancing at her furtively. "Of course, no." Sophia's words made the boy, who had mustered up the courage to approach her, instantly blush, his face turning as red as a boiled shrimp. His heart was on a roller coaster, rising and falling before finally hitting rock bottom. Sophia smiled. "You guys are really too young." The boy, who had just blushed, was indignant. Being called young by a girl younger than himself was an insult. But Sophia didn't give him a chance to retort. "I'm leaving. You guys have fun." Then, picking up her small bag, she walked briskly past the boy and left from the other side. So, did you get her WeChat? As soon as Sophia left, the other 2 boys swarmed around her, chattering away. "No? How could you be so useless? A beauty that's rare to behold, right in front of me, and I just watched it slip away. How cruel. It's all your fault. If I'd known, I would have gone for it myself." Fine. Why didn't you go for it yourself back then, coward? Even after Sophia had walked a distance, she could still faintly hear the arguing behind her, and couldn't help but chuckle. Youth is wonderful. This was just a small interlude, and Sophia didn't take it to heart at all. But she hadn't gone far when she sensed something was wrong. A black sports car was slowly following her at a snail's pace. Sophia thought for a moment, then turned around and walked to the passenger window of the sports car, gently knocking on the glass a few times. The window slowly rolled down, and a cynical face appeared before Sophia. It was Adrian. He knew both Sophia and Victor. They had attended the same middle and high schools. In fact, Victor and Adrian had once been very close friends, but for some reason, they had a falling out during the summer after their college entrance exams. Sophia and Victor went to university, while Adrian went abroad, and they hadn't been in contact for over 10 years. "Beautiful lady, can I add you on WeChat?" Sophia slowly smiled. "My pleasure." Judging from Adrian's words, he must have clearly seen the scene of Sophia being surrounded by boys, but he didn't know where they were hiding. "Your popularity remains as high as ever." Adrian rested his hands on the steering wheel, smiling slyly. "Was I popular before?" Sophia asked doubtfully. She didn't seem to have that impression in her past. From childhood to adulthood, the closest men to her, besides Victor, were only Adrian. Adrian smiled without speaking, then changed the subject, asking, "How have you been lately?" "Not bad. How about you? When did you get back from abroad?" "I haven't heard a thing." Adrian's voice was bitter as he said softly, "You only have Victor in your heart and eyes. How can you see anyone else?" "What did you say?" Adrian's voice was too soft. Sophia didn't hear him clearly. "Nothing. I've been back for a while." After a moment, Adrian smiled casually. "Where to?" "I'll take you. To the NYC Early Childhood Education Center." I need to pick up my daughter. Then, the car fell silent. Sophia looked to her left. The friend she hadn't seen in so long seemed untouched by time. He still looked as young as ever. But something seemed to have changed. His appearance had become more mature and composed, and he was even more charming. Adrian possessed a captivating, almost devilishly handsome appearance, with upturned, almond-shaped eyes that could make anyone dizzy. Compared to Victor, Adrian was likely even more popular with women. During her school days, Sophia witnessed him being pursued and adored by many girls, but unfortunately, she never saw him have any close contact with any of them. Adrian drove skillfully to the vicinity of the Early Childhood Education Center. I'll go with you. Sophia was about to say no, but before she could speak, Adrian interrupted. Later, we should still pick up your son, right? It should be almost time for kindergarten to end. Sophia thought for a moment and then agreed. She was completely taken aback as to why Adrian, who had suddenly appeared before her, seemed to know so much about her life. In the designated parent reception room, Emma was already waiting, led by a teacher. Emma, look, who's here? The teacher gently pointed in Sophia's direction. Today, Mom and Dad are here to pick up our little Emma. None of the teachers at the Early Childhood Education Center had ever seen Emma's father, Victor. Sophia was always the one who picked up and dropped off the child. This time, Adrian, who accompanied Sophia, was misunderstood by the teachers. The parents walking towards them were a perfect match. The woman was beautiful, the man handsome. No wonder little Emma was so cute and pretty, like a delicate porcelain doll. Adrian had also heard the teacher's words and was momentarily surprised, a nameless emotion welling up inside him. With that, his gaze shifted to the tiny little bean-like figure not far away. Upon closer inspection, Sophia's daughter looked exactly like her. Mouth, eyes, nose, everything was alike. Just looking at her like that, Adrian felt his heart gradually soften. Mommy? Emma happily flew straight towards Sophia. Before she could even touch Sophia's clothes, she was suddenly lifted up by a pair of large hands. Are you Emma? Yes, who are you? Me? I'm your mother's good friend. Sophia raised an eyebrow. It was truly unexpected that Adrian, who seemed unapproachable, would be so patient and affectionate towards Emma. Emma's mother, isn't this your husband? The teacher, who had overheard the entire conversation, was quite embarrassed and quickly apologized to Sophia. He's my friend. Sophia could see the sudden gleam in the eyes of the group of female teachers nearby, who were all listening intently, but their professional ethics forced them to suppress their eagerness. Sophia looked amusedly at Adrian and Emma, who were now playfully snuggling together. Sex and food are human nature. It turns out women, like men, value a beautiful appearance just as much. Sophia deeply felt that the connection between people was truly wondrous. Adrian and Emma really got along well. The two, one big and one small, were playing together, and after a while, Sophia actually heard Emma say, "Daddy Adrian." Emma was at the age where she was learning to speak, and sometimes her words were unclear, and sometimes she would stutter when speaking a slightly longer sentence. But she pronounced Daddy Adrian very clearly. Daddy Adrian? Adrian didn't expect to be caught red-handed secretly teaching Emma to speak. He was embarrassed and guilty for a moment. Didn't I say before that if you and Victor had a child in the future, you had to find a godfather? So, I'm Emma's godfather. The more Adrian spoke, the more self-righteous he became, as if it were really true. Sophia wasn't one to hold grudges, and it wasn't a bad thing for another person to like Emma, so she didn't dwell on it. Seeing Sophia shift her focus, Adrian breathed a sigh of relief. His emotions had been like a roller coaster, going up and down. He'd always been fearless, but just now he was genuinely afraid. Afraid that Sophia would have bad feelings towards him, afraid that she'd discover his hidden thoughts, afraid she'd distance herself from him. For over 10 years, he still couldn't let go, always watching from afar. But when he received news a couple of days ago that Victor was having an ambiguous relationship with his colleague, he couldn't hold back any longer and rushed back from abroad overnight. Only today, after mustering all his courage, did he appear before Sophia as if nothing had happened. After picking up Emma, he immediately picked up Leo from kindergarten. Sophia noticed that while Adrian was friendly and fond of Leo, he wasn't nearly as affectionate as he was of Emma. Sophia wondered if it was true that like repels like, and opposites attract. What Sophia didn't know was that Adrian felt a complex mix of emotions when he looked at Leo. Because Leo looked so much like Victor, he struggled to find a few similarities between the child and Sophia on the child's face. This little one standing before him constantly reminded him that this was the fruit of Victor and Sophia's love. A witness to Sophia's life that he had never been able to participate in before, and even now. Although Adrian didn't dislike Leo, and even felt a slight fondness for him because of Sophia, that was all. Leo was also very sensitive to Adrian's attitude. Although he wasn't very close to his father, a father is still a father. He was already 5 years old. Children his age understand a lot. Leo slowly reached for Sophia's hand, then suddenly asked, "Mommy, where's Daddy? I miss him. Let's go pick him up from work later." Adrian, who was walking ahead carrying Emma, also heard Leo's words, paused, and looked up at Sophia. "Then I'll take you there. I haven't seen Victor in a long time. How about we get together tonight?" "No need, I think he's busy tonight." Sophia smiled, then said to Leo, "Your dad has other things to do tonight." Adrian only said it casually. He hadn't really considered meeting up with Victor. He scoffed inwardly. He had clearly seen Victor taking his female subordinate to the market to buy groceries. Sophia and Adrian didn't take it seriously, and Emma happily chatted away. Only Leo seemed rather sullen. Meanwhile, after buying groceries, Victor and Chloe went to Chloe's residence together. It was a small, cozy apartment. The warm yellow tones and dewy flowers created a vibrant atmosphere. It felt very homey. Returning here instantly washed away the fatigue of a long day. "Boss, have a seat. I'll go prepare the ingredients. The apartment is small and a bit messy. Please don't mind." "It's fine." Chloe prepared the ingredients quickly and efficiently. But despite her efficiency, her cooking skills weren't particularly impressive. Usually, she ate out, as she lived alone. At most, she'd make some porridge and a few bland side dishes. Such a diet was fine occasionally, supposedly light and good for the stomach, but long-term consumption would likely leave her feeling utterly bland. Because the ingredients were simple, Chloe quickly served the food. The presentation was good, quite appetizing. However, knowing her own limitations, Chloe was well aware of her own cooking abilities. "Boss, your stomach isn't good, so I cooked this meal very lightly, with little salt and oil. Don't mind it." Chloe wiped her hands clean and smiled shyly at Victor. "I don't mind at all. I said I'd treat you to dinner, but you ended up cooking it yourself." "Don't say that, of course it's your treat this time. You paid for all these dishes, didn't you?" Chloe blinked mischievously. Turning her head, she added, "If you're not satisfied, you can treat me again next time." Time after time, back and forth, their relationship naturally grew closer. Chloe was constantly making her own calculations. Victor laughed heartily. "Okay, I'll treat you again next time." It wasn't that Victor couldn't see through Chloe's little scheme, but he just couldn't bear to expose her. A young girl's novelty wouldn't last long, right? Victor picked up a piece of vinegar fish with his chopsticks, and as soon as it entered his mouth, he was overwhelmed by the sourness. It truly lived up to its name. Vinegar fish, it was probably filled with a whole bottle of vinegar. It was so sour it would make your teeth ache. Chloe, seeing the other's expression, realized something was wrong. It seemed her main dish, made according to the recipe, had been a failure. Victor's mouth was filled with sourness. He didn't know whether to spit it out or keep it in, so she could only force herself to swallow it. He quickly reached for the dishes next to her. Fortunately, not all dishes were like the vinegar fish. Although bland, the food was still edible. The most eye-catching dish was the steamed lobster. This kind of seafood, brimming with freshness, thrives best when cooked in the simplest way, as long as the ingredients are good. Victor ate this seafood the most that evening. The other dish was Chloe's homemade wine. 3 empty bottles sat on the table. Most of the wine ended up in Victor's stomach. To improve the taste, Chloe added a lot of rock sugar to the wine, making it sweet and sour like grape juice, but he hadn't expected it to be so potent. At first, Victor didn't notice, but after a few rounds of drinks and after stopping eating, his thinking began to become sluggish and blurry. Chloe had also drunk quite a bit of wine, but she only felt slightly dizzy. Alcohol emboldens the timid, and besides, Chloe, despite her delicate appearance, was actually quite shrewd. She wasn't exactly a heroine, but she was far from being a coward. Time, it's getting late, I should go back. Victor squinted, picked up his briefcase, and prepared to leave. In the quiet, alluring night, two people alone in a room was bound to create a bad impression. Victor's posture was unsteady as he stood up, staggering. Chloe quickly stepped forward to support him, a faint electric current surging between them as their skin touched. Chloe bit her lip, a determined look flashing in her eyes. Perhaps, just be decisive. Victor, who had been squinting and with a muddled mind, was startled by Chloe's actions, and his mind cleared considerably. Chloe, what are you doing? Put it on quickly. Victor's stern tone, coupled with his hoarse voice, held no intimidation whatsoever. It turned out that Chloe, in a moment of desperation, had simply taken off her outer garment, revealing a beautiful young woman's figure to Victor. Boss, I don't believe you still don't understand my feelings. Chloe was on the verge of tears, glistening on her eyelids, preventing Victor from uttering the harsh words he was about to say. He could only sigh heavily. What a silly girl. I know I shouldn't have broken up your family. I never intended to. I just couldn't help myself the moment I saw you. I promise, after tonight, we'll just be superior and subordinate. Just consider it leaving me with some beautiful memories. Chloe rambled on incoherently, and it was precisely this state of mind that highlighted the sincerity of her affection. At least, for Victor, a man, it was quite an accomplishment. Mommy, it's so late. Why isn't Daddy back yet? Leo, clutching his toy excavator, followed Sophia like a little tail, asking incessantly. Sophia found it strange. Leo wasn't usually this clingy to Victor. Sophia squatted down and asked gently, Leo, do you miss Daddy? Leo hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly. Daddy's busy with work, just like always. He might be back late. You should go to sleep early, and you'll see Daddy tomorrow morning. Leo obediently hummed in agreement. When he reached his bedroom door, he suddenly turned back and asked, Today, that uncle. I heard Emma call him Daddy. Leo frowned, his face showing displeasure. Sophia chuckled and said, So that's why you've been so down since you came back. It's because of Godfather. Emma gets along really well with that uncle. If you'd like, you can call him Godfather too. He's a good friend of Mom and Dad. But it's so late, little one should go to bed early. After settling the two little ones in, Sophia returned to the bedroom and made a phone call. How did things go? Miss Sophia, don't worry. Everything that needed to be filmed and recorded has been done. I'll send it to your email later. Okay. Once I receive the items and inspect them, the money will be transferred to your account. Sophia finished speaking quickly and was about to hang up when the person on the other end hesitated for a moment before suddenly speaking, Wait. Miss Sophia, I've made another discovery. Sophia listened quietly to the other person's words and calmly asked, You mean there's another group of people watching that place? Yes. Sophia thought for a moment, smiled. Don't worry about those things. Just do your own thing. Don't let anyone find out about you. After hanging up, Sophia played with her hair with amusement. How interesting. There's another group of people. If she guessed correctly, the person behind this could only be him. Sophia, just how slow-witted are you? It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that Victor cautiously opened the door and went home. He moved very quietly, afraid of waking up his family inside. The first thing he did upon returning home was to wash himself thoroughly. When he went to open the bedroom door, still damp, he found it locked from the inside. He had no choice but to spend the night in the guest room. This outcome, ironically, relieved him. He was genuinely worried that Sophia, a light sleeper, would wake up and ask why he was home so late. However, he hadn't given much thought to why. Starting that night, Sophia had locked the door from the inside, and even though he had been extremely quiet, his movements upon returning still made some noise. His light-sleeping wife hadn't noticed anything? Hadn't she even gotten up? All these unusual behaviors were completely overlooked by the guilty-hearted Victor until later when he deeply regretted his actions. The next day, as usual, no breakfast was prepared at the dinner table. "You're up." Victor paused in fastening his cufflinks, turned his head, and asked casually, "I worked overtime last night and got home a little late." Before Victor could finish explaining, Sophia nodded understandingly. Even though Sophia was being considerate and didn't ask any further questions, Victor felt uneasy, a suffocating feeling weighing on him. If it were before Sophia. Victor suddenly remembered what Sophia was like before, but wasn't this perfect? He used to always complain that Sophia was becoming increasingly nagging. After a moment of silence, Victor tugged at his clothes and said to Sophia, "Then I'm going to work." Sophia didn't get up, only humming a few words to indicate that he heard. Victor frowned, said nothing, opened the door, and went out. In his office, a steaming breakfast was laid out on his desk. There was also a small sticky note next to it. "You have a sensitive stomach, so I made this porridge myself." The neat handwriting was clearly written by Chloe. After last night, Victor had mixed feelings about Chloe and didn't know how to deal with the young girl. "I want a divorce." Sophia's words caused a huge uproar in her family. Early in the morning, after dropping the children off, Sophia was called back by a barrage of calls from her parents. Before they could even scold her, Sophia blurted out her decision. Her father, without asking why, glared at her angrily. "I don't agree." Her mother was also anxious. "Sophia, don't say things like divorce. Don't be so willful. You've always done so well before. Why now?" This was what Margaret couldn't understand. It felt like her daughter had changed overnight. Disobedient, difficult to communicate with, and completely ignoring advice, not understanding her parents' good intentions. They were all doing it for her own good. Sophia found a more comfortable spot on the sofa before slowly saying, "This time, I'm not here to ask for your opinions. I'm just here to tell you my decision. You're my parents, and I respect you, but I also want to ask you to respect my thoughts, okay?" Sophia's kind words didn't elicit understanding from her father. Instead, they made him even more furious. "What's wrong with Victor that makes you so determined to divorce her? Our family has never had a precedent for divorce, so don't even think about it. If you insist on a divorce, then don't consider us your parents anymore. Making a scene about divorce like this, what will our relatives, friends, and neighbors think of your mother and me? Do you think a divorced woman like you will get away with anything good?" Robert clenched his fists, veins bulging on his neck, looking terrifying. His words were harsh and vicious. This didn't sound like he was cursing his daughter, it was like he was facing an enemy. If this were the original Sophia, facing her father's reckless words transformed into a sharp blade, wouldn't it have further ravaged her already wounded heart, leaving it riddled with holes? The most hurtful, fatal blows are often inflicted by those closest to us. Sophia suddenly understood the original owner's involuntary decision to give up on life. She might truly not be able to hold on any longer. Sophia remained silent, simply watching. Watching her father and mother, like trapped beasts, vent their anger in the room. When the two had exhausted themselves with their tirade and their voices gradually subsided, Sophia expressionlessly tossed out a stack of documents. Inside were photos of Victor and Chloe as classmates and explicit photos of the two of them together in a room the previous night. "Your good son-in-law has cheated on you." Sophia's mother's hands trembled as she picked up the photos, tears welling up instantly. "Damn it, I thought he was a good person." "Sophia, what are we going to do?" Sophia's father, like a duck being choked, slumped his head, his earlier anger vanishing without a trace. Sophia's mother clutched the stack of photos tightly, preparing to rush out of the room. "I'm going to find those two old folks from the Victor family and ask them how they raised their child." But before she could move, Sophia's father stopped her. He growled, "Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" Robert irritably pulled out a cigarette, took a deep drag, and turned to Sophia sternly, saying, This is probably Victor's first time too. Men inevitably make mistakes in this area. As long as he sincerely repents, Sophia, please forgive him. Wait, have this kid come over and apologize to you. The children are still young. They can't be without their father. Besides, everyone has seen how he's treated you all these years. Everyone should take a step back. You should also reflect on whether there's anything you've done wrong. Margaret also realized what was happening, took Sophia's hand, and said softly, "Yes, you two have children. If this gets out of hand, it won't look good for anyone." Sophia was taken aback, her smile unusually cold. She shouldn't have had any expectations of her parents. They seemed to value face more than anything else. Under his mother's astonished gaze, Sophia slowly withdrew her hand, stood up, and retorted sarcastically, "Am I your biological daughter?" With company matters settled, Victor finally had some time to think. But before he could calm down, the phone rang. His father's furious shouts came through the line, leaving Victor bewildered. "Dad, why are you so angry today? You still have the nerve to say that? Don't you know what you've done? Come back here right now." The phone slammed down. Victor was completely confused, not knowing what had happened, but a sudden unease welled up inside him. This intuition made him grab his car keys without even taking his coat and rush out the door. Chloe waited anxiously outside, absent-mindedly working on her tasks, but her eyes were constantly fixed on the vice president's office. As soon as Victor stepped out, she immediately put down her work, straightened her dress, and gracefully greeted him. Victor was completely oblivious to Chloe's presence. His mind was preoccupied with the phone call he'd just had. The two brushed past each other, and Chloe, feeling awkward, heard the whispers of her colleagues and blushed deeply. Victor rushed back, and as soon as he opened the door, he was greeted by a stainless steel ashtray. Luckily, he reacted quickly, tilting his head, and the ashtray grazed his ear before hitting the half-open door frame. Victor was startled and turned to see a small dent in the door frame, indicating the force of the impact. If it had hit his head, it would have been a fatal head injury. Not only Victor, but his mother was also terrified by his father's actions and burst into tears. With a sob in her voice, she began to make a scene. "George, what are you doing? Are you trying to kill your son? Fine, then kill me first." Victor just couldn't understand why his father was so angry. His mother, always so self-possessed and elegant, was also acting like this. Linda stood in front of Victor, staring intently at George with eyes like a thief, afraid he would go crazy again and hurt her precious son. Her son hadn't done anything wrong. It was all Sophia's fault. Men, like cats, are bound to stray. Why make such a big deal out of it and cause everyone unpleasantness? As long as he cared about the family and came home, that was enough. That's what Linda thought, and that's what she said. "Our son only made a small mistake. He'll correct it later." If you ask me, why doesn't Sophia think about whether she did something wrong? Besides, you saw it yourself. What an arrogant attitude she had, disrespecting her elders, spouting nonsense the moment she opened her mouth, saying she wanted to divorce Victor, and she even wanted to take the children with her. Wait. Let's go find Sophia, Fodder, and ask him how he raised his daughter. Linda became more and more angry as she spoke, and as she did so, she raised her leg, ready to go to the Sue family next door to demand an explanation. Bang! A loud crash. George smashed the teacup in his hand on the ground. He snapped angrily, "Haven't you made enough of a scene? Aren't you ashamed enough already? Those photos, haven't you seen enough of them? Do you want people to smear my reputation again?" Linda seemed to recall the evidence Sophia had presented, those photos and videos, which were truly unbearable to talk about. Instantly, Linda, who had been so arrogant just moments before, deflated like a wilted eggplant. Victor's mind was a complete buzzing, a chaotic jumble. He couldn't even hear the words his parents were arguing about. Only the word divorce echoed in his mind, rising and falling. Victor rubbed his ears, wondering if he was hallucinating. How could such a ridiculous thing happen? Divorce? You mean Sophia wants a divorce? Hey, don't joke around. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Victor smiled, uttering words of disbelief. Victor's parents exchanged a glance, not daring to say another word, afraid of upsetting their son. They knew that this was a huge blow to a man's pride, especially since it was the woman who initiated it. Linda cautiously approached Victor and whispered, "Son, are you all right? Don't worry, your father and I will not agree to Sophia doing this." George, who had been furious, was much calmer, though his eyes still held resentment towards Victor. "Your mother is right, we will not agree. Sophia's family across the street probably won't agree either. It seems Sophia acted on her own initiative. You should go to your in-laws' house later and apologize sincerely. They will help you." Once his anger subsided, George immediately came up with several solutions. "Sophia, why did you suddenly decide to divorce me? This morning we were fine." Victor was still confused, but he had a vague suspicion. However, he was being very careful and had maintained a certain distance from Chloe until last night. It was just that he couldn't control himself last night, and it was too late for regrets. He had figured it out. From today onward, he would treat everything from last night as an accident. He believed Chloe would understand. Could it be that Sophia had discovered it so early? Or that she had actually been monitoring him all along? In an instant, various thoughts raced through Victor's mind, and all sorts of speculations surged into his heart. Amidst the turbulent waves of emotions, there was also a hint of displeasure and embarrassment. If you two had always been doing well, why would Sophia want a divorce? And can you even clean up your messes? Are the photos and videos that Sophia threw in front of us all photoshopped? Are you and that female colleague at your company named Chloe innocent? George was almost provoked by Victor's words again, his hand trembling as he pointed at Victor. Thinking that he was so old, and that a junior like Sophia had made a spectacle of him, he was furious. Besides being disappointed in Victor's lack of self-control, he was even more resentful of Sophia. Victor's suspicions were confirmed, and strangely, his emotions became unusually calm. A feeling of, "I knew it. Sophia insists on a divorce?" Victor asked calmly. Linda angrily shouted, "That's right. She even said she'd take both children with her. Leo and Emma, they're our family's flesh and blood. How can we allow her to talk to us like that?" "Stop talking," George gruffly interrupted Linda's continued accusations against Sophia, turning to Victor and saying, "Go to your in-laws' house now and see what the situation is." Leaving aside the uproar Victor would cause at Sophia's parents' house, Sophia felt a sense of relief now, a release of pent-up anger. This feeling must have come from the original owner of this body. Subconsciously, she had been suppressing it for a long time, but those around her, and even herself, had constantly convinced her that she had lived a good and happy life all these years, that everything was the best choice. But was that really the case? After a heated argument with her in-laws this morning, Sophia left home and went to her in-laws' house with her belongings. She simply told them that she was divorcing Victor. Seeing their incredulous expressions, Sophia felt a strange sense of exhilaration. Sophia didn't resent these emotions that weren't her own. In fact, she thoroughly experienced them. After thoroughly analyzing them, she concluded that her mental strength was too weak. Even slightly intense emotions from the original owner of this body could make her empathize. While she didn't dislike this situation, she didn't want to be in a passive position forever. However, she had no better way to resolve the problem now. After thinking for a while, Sophia put the issue aside. Sophia hadn't mentioned her decision to divorce to her in-laws this morning, but since the Sue and Shin families lived next door, she figured it wouldn't be long before her parents found out. And indeed, it happened much faster than Sophia expected. The thought had just crossed her mind when her phone started ringing off the hook. Calls came from her parents, her in-laws, and Victor. Sophia pursed her lips, didn't answer any of them, turned off the ringer, and let the phone keep ringing. Then she turned her car around and went straight to the best law firm in the city. This firm was supposedly famous for specializing in divorce cases. Better safe than sorry, Sophia thought. Knowing the nature of the two families, she figured her decision would definitely be strongly opposed. She had to act decisively and start with Victor. Sophia was 90% sure Victor would agree to her proposal. As Sophia expected, when she returned home with her lawyer, Victor was already sitting quietly on the sofa in the living room, waiting for her. The room was filled with smoke, and the ashtray in front of him was full of empty cigarette butts. "You're back." "Yes, this is my lawyer. He'll talk to you later." The conversation between the two was unusually calm, as if they were discussing what they were having for dinner. Victor remained silent for a while, and the top lawyer didn't urge her either, waiting quietly with a smile on his face. When Sophia came out after changing her clothes, Victor frowned and said unhappily, "Don't you have any sentimentality? Can you really let go of all the years we've been together?" The certainty in Victor's tone greatly displeased Sophia. He seemed particularly confident, certain that Sophia was acting out of anger, which was why she made this decision. "My relationship with Chloe was just an accident." Sophia chuckled, interrupting Victor before he could finish speaking. "I can assure you that today's decision is the best I've ever made." Victor gave Sophia a deep look, seemingly displeased with her sulking behavior. "Mom and Dad won't agree." Victor stated this fact, "especially your parents. If it weren't for my intervention, they would be standing in front of you right now." As before, Victor would resort to Sophia's parents whenever things got out of his control. He knew very well his position in Sophia's parents' hearts. In fact, one word from him was often more effective than 3 words from Sophia. However, he seemed to have forgotten that everything Sophia was doing indicated that she was an independent person, and no one could influence her independent thoughts, not even her own parents. "Thank you very much, but I will give them an explanation. Now, you just need to sign this agreement." Sophia was unmoved by Victor's words, even wearing a faint, polite smile as she took the drafted divorce agreement from the lawyer and handed it to Victor. Victor looked at his wife with unfamiliarity, feeling that she was vastly different from the image he remembered. "Aren't you going to reconsider? Don't you even think about Leo and Emma?" Victor wasn't really willing to get a divorce. A successful elite like him always needed a harmonious family image to gain more trust. Moreover, considering various factors, he felt that divorce would do more harm than good for both of them. He just didn't understand why Sophia was so stubborn this time. Victor had already learned from his parents that Sophia possessed substantial evidence of his infidelity, although she hadn't presented it to him yet. However, judging from Sophia's current attitude, if he didn't agree, this evidence would likely end up on the judge's desk. Sophia smiled without saying a word, patiently waiting for Victor to silently weigh the pros and cons alone. Seeing Victor remain unresponsive for so long, the lawyer secretly gestured to Sophia. "Do you need me to?" Sophia slowly waved her hand and mouthed softly, "Don't worry, he'll agree." After a long while, Victor raised her dry eyes and asked Sophia expressionlessly, "If you insist, I can sign. But the child won't be yours." In every mother's heart, her child is her Achilles heel. For her child, a mother can make any compromise. Hearing this, the lawyer beside her couldn't sit still any longer and stepped forward, wanting to speak, but Sophia stopped him. "Victor, you are more shameless and despicable than I expected," Sophia said coldly. Victor forced a smile. "Sophia, you haven't worked since graduation. Do you know how much Leo and Emma spend each month? Can you afford it? Besides, this house is my premarital property. If we divorce, you'll have nowhere to go with 2 children. Moreover, your parents don't support your decision. Currently, you're at fault, and we have sample evidence to prove it. The judge will favor the woman in the property distribution," the lawyer finally couldn't help but say. Victor ignored the lawyer beside him, staring intently at Sophia, awaiting her decision. No wonder Victor was so confident. From his memories, he knew that after so many years of marriage, their shared assets were negligible. After paying for household expenses, Victor's monthly salary left little. As for his investments, they weren't in his own name. They were either in his father's or his mother's name. "You don't need to worry about that. Since I can have 2 children, I can raise them." Sophia calmly responded to Victor's gaze. Victor was silent for a moment, then said, "You'll regret it." Sophia didn't want to argue with him about these meaningless topics about whether she would regret it later. "Let the kids make their own choice." Sophia thought for a few minutes and finally agreed to Victor's suggestion. She understood Victor's thoughts. He was gambling on his soft heart and reluctance, and also on the children's unbreakable bond with their biological father. That evening, Leo and Emma stood between Sophia and Victor. Emma was still young, always happily climbing on Sophia. To her, Victor was just a figurehead, not a real father. Sophia simply asked a question, and Emma happily replied, with mommy. Witnessing all this, Leo looked at her father, then at her mother, and slowly lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. I want daddy and mommy together. This afternoon, his grandparents came to the kindergarten to see him. They said that if he went with his mother, he would never see his father or grandparents again. He would be a child without a father, and others would bully him. But if he went with his father, his mother would stay with him too. Leo kept remembering what his grandparents had told him that afternoon. He didn't want to be a child who was bullied. Sophia felt a pang of sadness when she heard Leo's words, but she still patiently said, "Daddy and mommy will still love you. Everything in your life will remain the same. The only change is that mommy won't live with your father anymore." Leo. Victor looked at everything in front of him with a deep expression, remaining silent. He knew that his parents had gone to the kindergarten and early education center that afternoon, and that he had even instigated the whole thing. "I want to go with Daddy," Leo said softly, then raised his tear-streaked face and looked at his mother expectantly. "In that case, Mom will stay too, right?" Sophia listened to Leo's childish voice with disappointment, softened her tone, and asked, "Isn't it good to be with Mom?" Leo shook her head vigorously. "Mom, can you stay with Leo? And with Dad too?" To Victor's surprise, Sophia rubbed Leo's head, stood up, and said, "Leo, I'm sorry. Mom can't live with your dad anymore. If you miss Mom, Mom will bring you to live with us later." Sophia's words at this moment were like a final decision, leaving Victor no room for rebuttal. That night, Sophia took Emma, packed her suitcase, and left the home she had painstakingly built amidst Leo's wailing cries. Before leaving, Victor held the struggling Leo, her face grim, and whispered, "Sophia, you've changed. Your heart has hardened too." Late at night, Sophia, unable to return to her parents' place, planned to stay in a hotel for the night with Emma. Unexpectedly, by sheer coincidence, she bumped into Adrian's car just as she stepped out of the apartment complex, pushing her suitcase. What a coincidence, what a coincidence. Under Sophia's piercing gaze, Adrian couldn't finish his story. He awkwardly got out of the car, scratching his head and muttering, I have a friend who's a partner in a firm, so." Sophia waited with a half-smile for Adrian's explanation, but he stammered for a long time without making any sense. "So you came all this way late at night specifically to see if I needed any help?" Sophia kindly offered an explanation for him. Adrian's eyes lit up, and he slapped his thigh, saying, "That's exactly it." "Oh, really?" Yes, that's it." Adrian was convinced of this reason and didn't waver. He quickly took the suitcase from Sophia's hands with one hand and hugged Emma with the other, feeling guilty yet unable to hide his excitement. He said loudly, come on, we're old friends. I can't let you be homeless. I have an empty apartment here. A cleaning lady cleans it every week. You two can move in right away. Stay as long as you want. Don't be shy with me." Sophia didn't ask anything. She knew in her heart that this man, who was using the guise of friendship, probably knew more about the details of this divorce than she did. His intentions were obvious to everyone. In the end, she couldn't resist Adrian's repeated persuasion, so Sophia took Emma to Adrian's apartment to spend the night and make plans for the next day. Adrian was like a leech. Once he stuck to her, she couldn't get rid of him. He had been somewhat restrained before, behaving quite properly. But now, seeing that Sophia was single again, he seemed to feel there was no need to hide his feelings anymore, and his attitude became extremely attentive. The next day, as dawn broke, the morning air was still damp, and the sounds of birdsong and insects gradually rose. The city slowly awoke. It was another beautiful new day. But Victor didn't feel that way. He only felt that this was the worst, most terrible day of his 30-plus years. The child's crying was incessant, accompanied by the clattering and frantic sounds of pots and pans in the kitchen, and Victor felt his head was about to explode. He felt more tired than if he had been working nonstop for several nights. "Daddy, I'm so hungry, so hungry." Leo, with swollen, puffy eyes, pitifully clutched her dry, rumbling belly, looking very aggrieved. Seeing the kitchen door closed and receiving no response, he could only tiptoe, trying to grab a box of cookies from the tall cabinet to fill his stomach. However, he accidentally knocked over a glass jar. It shattered on the floor with a bang. The shards of glass terrified the little boy, and a wave of frustration and fear washed over his young heart. Leo burst into tears. Meanwhile, Victor was still in a state of panic. His long, slender fingers, usually so adept at using pens, were now covered in small blisters from oil splattering everywhere. The burnt eggs, the pungent smell, the blackened bread slices, all added to Victor's frustration. The loud crash outside, coupled with Leo's cries, made Victor's heart tighten. Forgetting about the mess, he rushed out of the kitchen. "Leo, are you all right? Did you hurt yourself?" Seeing his father appear, Leo pouted and cried even louder, sobbing and accusing him. I want my mom, I want my mom." Victor's heart sank. He took out his phone, then put it down, repeating this several times. In the end, he didn't dial the familiar number. Seeing his son trembling and unable to stop crying, Victor felt helpless and dejected. Finally, he could only comfort him. "Don't worry, Mommy and your sister are just staying out for a few days. They'll come back once they've calmed down." Really? Leo clearly took his words to heart, and instantly, his crying subsided. "It's true, don't worry." The unexpected divorce had disrupted Victor's original plans. Currently, he could only settle Leo down. As for taking him to Shanghai, that idea was probably out of the question. By the time Victor had everything settled and arrived at the company, it was already well past working hours. Victor, the vice president known for his workaholic nature, was unusually late for the first time ever. He also lacked his usual alertness and energy. His white shirt was wrinkled, his hair was slightly disheveled, and his eyes were dull and lifeless. Although he still maintained a serious demeanor, his unusual appearance surprised those around him. Chloe, who had been watching the doorway, noticed Victor the moment he entered. She was deeply worried. Although she verbally declared that their relationship would be purely that of superior and subordinate, deep down she felt different from others. After all, the traces left by their close contact couldn't be faked, could they? Unlike others who only whispered amongst themselves, Chloe went directly and unabashedly, her face filled with concern. "Boss, are you all right?" Victor heard the voice, glanced at Chloe's innocent face, but unexpectedly glared at her fiercely. Victor admitted that he was taking his anger out on her, although he knew he shouldn't. Here, Chloe's incredulous gaze made Victor feel a slight pang of regret, but right now, he desperately needed an outlet for his emotions. She really thinks she's something special. A female colleague, who always clashed with Chloe, couldn't help but burst out laughing. Chloe glared fiercely at the colleague who had just spoken, then turned and rushed into the bathroom. Meanwhile, Sophia and Emma appeared remarkably relaxed and carefree. The mother and daughter played and laughed for a while, dressing the little girl up beautifully, and were just about to go out when the doorbell rang at just the right moment. As soon as she opened the door, Emma's eyes crinkled with laughter as she jumped into Adrian's arms. "Daddy, Adrian." Adrian happily picked up Emma and handed the still-steaming breakfast to Sophia. "The chef at home cooked this for you and Emma. Take a look, is it to your liking?" Sophia stepped aside to let Adrian in. After she had placed all the breakfast on the table, she looked up and saw that Adrian had carefully placed Emma in her high chair, with a bib around her neck. Sophia stared at Adrian for a few moments, a wave of emotion washing over her. The careless, arrogant boy who once thought he was the best in the world had grown into the man he was today. "You're single and don't have any kids, so why did you prepare a baby chair and children's supplies?" Sophia hadn't noticed and didn't know where Adrian had found them. A friend left them here." Adrian stammered, his eyes darting around. Sophia instantly felt like she was being silly. It was obvious Adrian had prepared them beforehand. Seeing Sophia remain silent, Adrian panicked. His mind raced, and he quickly explained, quite annoyed, these are all new and used. He was afraid Sophia would misunderstand, thinking that Emma's things were used by his friend's child, and feel uncomfortable. Sophia couldn't help but chuckle. She knew a little about him. Adrian had returned to China to become the president of the International CE Group. Upon taking office, he used ruthless methods to subdue his subordinates, completely seizing control of the group. How could such a man, with such a temperament, appear so insecure now? Love truly makes people blind. Sophia didn't intend to reciprocate such fervent feelings. She felt it was necessary and her obligation to clarify things with him. If it were the original owner of this body, perhaps she would have been gradually moved by Adrian, but she wasn't. How could a man like Adrian not notice Sophia's momentary emotional fluctuation? Besides, Sophia had originally wanted him to know. But before Sophia could speak again, Adrian smiled and changed the subject. Hurry up and eat. Emma is hungry. Mommy, I want that little pig bun and the little rabbit dumpling. Emma's eyes lit up as she stared intently at the animal-shaped pastries on the table. Sophia had no choice but to put aside what she originally wanted to say and focus on taking care of Emma. I'll take care of Emma's eating. You go and eat too. The porridge won't taste good if it gets cold. Sophia noticed that, apart from the ones specially made for Emma, the other breakfast items on the table were all the original owner's favorite flavors. These are all things you liked to eat when we were in school. So many years have passed, I wonder if your tastes have changed. Adrian said slowly, his head lowered. Sophia only felt sorry for the original owner of this body. She had never known that such a strong affection had once been shared with her from afar. As expected, there was no response, which he was used to. But a layer of disappointment still surfaced uncontrollably in his eyes. Ring ring. Sophia's phone rang. As soon as she answered, her father's furious voice echoed in the room. Are you really trying to drive us crazy? Robert, calm down. I'll talk to our daughter. Emma was startled by the sudden shout, and the food in her small spoon fell onto the plate. Her little mouth pouted, as if she was about to cry. Adrian quickly picked up the little girl from the high chair and held her in his arms, comforting her. I'll take Emma to eat over there, Adrian said softly to Sophia. Then, carrying the baby in one arm and a small bowl in the other, she took Emma away, leaving Sophia some space to deal with the family matters. Listening to the voices on the phone, it seemed the call had passed from Robert to Margaret. Margaret's stern voice came through the receiver. I just heard a man's voice, Sophia. Are you with another man right now? Robert's loud shouts echoed, a man? Sophia, how can you be so shameless? He snatched the phone from his wife's hand. The insults on the other end were extremely offensive. Sophia had no choice but to keep the phone away from her ear. It was hard to imagine that parents could so freely use such vicious words to describe their daughter. Even a normal person with a weak will would probably be driven mad in this situation. Sophia's face grew colder and colder. Her parents had repeatedly crossed the line. No wonder the original owner's wishes never mentioned her parents. The hurt from family members was the most heart-wrenching. On the other end of the phone, the person remained silent, no matter how much they cursed or lectured. There was still no sound. The expected compromise and pleading voice did not come. Only a cold, desolate atmosphere permeated the air. A sense of unease rose in Margaret's heart. Recalling her daughter's recent unusual and rebellious behavior, she suppressed her strong dissatisfaction and tried to soften her voice, asking, Sophia, you insist on a divorce. Is it because of that man we just heard? The Sophia parents' wanton and insulting speculation completely erased any remaining warmth Sophia felt towards them. Why? Sophia calmly retorted. What? You clearly know why I want a divorce. Why don't you blame the wrongdoer, instead pointing all the fingers at me, your own daughter? Every parent has an innate instinct to protect their children, but I seem to have never seen that in you. Sophia said slowly and calmly, seemingly unaffected by the other's emotions. Speechless, Margaret felt deeply ashamed by Sophia's words. However, her authority as an elder prevented her from admitting she was wrong. She felt even more that her daughter was disobedient and defiant. Victor only made a mistake once. She can correct it. Why are you so petty? Seeing that Sophia remained unmoved, Margaret was at a loss. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. Sophia's impatience slowly reached its peak. And Leo. Margaret hurriedly interjected, don't you think about Leo? The child is so young. How pitiful it would be if he lost his mother. This morning when he was taken to his grandparents' house, his eyes were swollen. I didn't say I didn't want him. It was Victor who wouldn't give him the time. Otherwise, she would drag it out without a divorce. Then don't get a divorce. Margaret said lightly, as if they all considered themselves wooden figures, never caring about the feelings of those involved. Only their own assumptions. But I find Victor disgusting. I can't stand it for even a second. Leo is still my son, and I will take him back in the future. Sophia wasn't unmoved by Leo's plight or pain. She simply had no better way to reconcile the situation and could only temporarily make do with him. Seeing that they couldn't persuade Sophia no matter what they did, and that Victor's divorce from their daughter was a fait accompli, Sue's parents could only utter harsh words. If you don't listen to our advice, then don't call us Mom and Dad anymore. Robert, what should we do? I'm afraid the Victor's parents will hate us to death now. After hanging up the phone, Margaret said to Robert with concern, you didn't see it, but when Linda saw me this morning, she was absolutely furious. I wanted to talk to my grandson, but she wouldn't let me, saying he was their family's grandson. It really upset me. Our neighborly relationship of so many years has been completely ruined by these two kids. Robert puffed on his cigarette in frustration, and after a long pause, his voice still tinged with resentment, he said bitterly and helplessly, children are always a burden. Women always have to suffer some losses. We'll go and try to persuade them later. I don't know what's wrong with my daughter lately. She won't listen to a word of advice. She used to be so obedient. As parents, how could we possibly harm her? Isn't it all for her own good? As they talked, Margaret suddenly realized a problem. If they divorce, where will our daughter and Emma live? Adrian waited for Emma to finish her breakfast and then cleaned the little girl up. Listening to the sounds from the dining room and seeing that everything was calm, he smiled and appeared before Sophia, holding Emma. Emma, tell Mommy, is your tummy full? Emma squinted her eyes and happily patted her chubby little tummy with her hands. My tummy says it's bulging. No wonder everyone says children are healing angels. Seeing the child's adorable appearance, the cold aura surrounding Sophia completely vanished. My little darling is so wonderful. Adrian carefully observed the subtlest expressions on Sophia's face, leaned closer, and asked seemingly casually, if you need my help, just say so. He paused, glanced at Sophia again, and then hesitated before continuing, if you can't bear to part with Leo. I have a way. Sophia smiled at him. As for Leo, it's not necessary for now. Of course, she believed that Adrian had a million ways to bring Leo back to her side. After all, his true nature wasn't as sunny and enthusiastic as he appeared. Sophia didn't want to trouble Adrian any further. Seeing Sophia's distant behavior, Adrian was disappointed many times, and it became a habit. He inwardly cursed himself. Knowing Sophia's attitude from beginning to end, he still shamelessly clung to her, unable to stop himself. Adrian, oh Adrian, how could you be so spineless? He mentally berated himself, but his gaze towards Sophia remained as deep and unfathomable as the ocean, shimmering with light. Sophia teased Emma for a while, then suddenly said, however, I really do have something I need your help with. Adrian felt like he'd found a new lease on life. And, as if injected with adrenaline, quickly replied, no problem. You haven't even heard what it is, and you've already agreed? I'm not afraid. Even if you sold me out, I'd be willing. But Adrian didn't dare say that last part out loud. Sophia turned around and took out the formula she had written down last night from her bag. This is a formula I accidentally found in an ancient book. Your CE group seems to have several medical research institutes. I was thinking, could you take a look and see if this formula is useful? You know, Emma and I are penniless right now. We have to find a way to make a living. Adrian felt a pang of bitterness. The woman he wanted to cherish and pamper was now being forced by life. Actually, all he wanted to say was, "I can support you." But he didn't dare say that. If he did, he was afraid they wouldn't even be friends anymore, and he would lose even the slightest chance to get close to her. This ancient formula seems to be a method for treating tumors that have never appeared on the market before. The herbs are cheap, and it can completely democratize medicine. Adrian blankly took the light white paper that Sophia handed him. At first, he didn't think much of it, but when he glanced at it, his eyes widened, and he couldn't hear what Sophia was saying afterward. After graduating from high school and going abroad, before taking over the CE group, Adrian had been studying medicine and had also delved into the ancient medicine of his own country. Therefore, he could naturally understand the meaning behind this prescription. The piece of white paper, as light as a feather, now felt as heavy as Mount Tai, pressing heavily on his heart. Adrian's hands trembled as he asked in surprise, You just gave this to me like this?" "Yes, you're in the pharmaceutical field now," Sophia said lightly, but it moved Adrian to tears. What immense trust it took to entrust such a weighty item to him. If Sophia knew the rich inner monologue Adrian was having, she'd probably laugh herself silly. "You really misunderstand, young man. This ancient prescription was just one from one of Sophia's previous lives, when she was a noblewoman, passed down in her family. It wasn't particularly precious. After all, she remembered several similar prescriptions. In that era, ancient medicine was incredibly advanced, reaching its zenith. Even a young noblewoman of marriageable age possesses some medical skills. Sophia doesn't intend to defy the course of this timeline by offering anything particularly outrageous. According to the information she researched last night, all the ingredients in this tumor treatment formula can be substituted, and the efficacy can be fully achieved." At this moment, after his initial elation, Adrian fell into deep worry. What he perceived as help was actually Sophia's way of repaying his assistance over the past few days. Ultimately, she wanted to sever ties with him. Otherwise, given the value of this ancient formula, she could easily give it to any pharmaceutical company and reap both fame and fortune. Why would she benefit herself? CEO Adrian's usually clever mind was already a complete mess. He probably couldn't understand the principle of possessing a treasure invites trouble. Take it and experiment first. If it's successful, I only want 30% profit. Sophia's words pulled Adrian back to reality. Adrian immediately shook his head. "No, this formula is yours. 30% isn't enough." If anyone in the CE group were to see him at this moment, they would be utterly astonished. Was this the same ruthless, exploitative CEO? Was he some kind of fool, so afraid of making too much profit that he was pushing all the gains away? 30% is enough. I'll just provide a formula. The medical research team, how to mass produce it, all of these require financial support. In the end, I'm the one who benefits. After reaching a temporary agreement with Adrian, Sophia took Emma to Shanghai. CE Group's headquarters were still located in Shanghai, where there were more development opportunities. The prescription was merely a side issue. Sophia didn't plan to pursue it further. The original owner's wish was simply to live the life she wanted, free from anyone's control, and to truly do what she felt was right. The original Sophia loved literature, but in university, she was forced to major in finance, the same as Victor. Although she excelled in it, it wasn't her true passion. Therefore, after securing her basic needs, Sophia decided to try her hand at literary creation, somewhat to make up for a regret of the original owner. While everything went smoothly for Sophia, life was far from ideal for both families. Sophia's parents had originally intended to visit her, but after her divorce, she hadn't informed them of her address. A few days later, Sophia took Emma to Shanghai and changed her phone number. When the two elders tried to contact her again, they couldn't reach her at all. They didn't even know if their daughter had any close friends, so they had no way of finding her and could only passively wait for Sophia to call back. However, it seemed they had a long wait. Victor's parents were also having a tough time. Victor's work couldn't be delayed any longer, so he had to leave Leo in Suzhou for his parents to take care of. He then took several assistants to Shanghai, including Chloe. Previously, Sophia had taken care of the child, handling her food, clothes, and studies perfectly. The two elders in Victor's family only brought their grandson over every few days for a day or two, so they didn't feel too tired. Especially Linda, who had the majority of the responsibility for taking care of Leo. But now, spending all day taking care of the child, Linda's not-so-robust body quickly couldn't keep up. Especially boys, naturally mischievous, love to climb and play. Their mouths chatter incessantly, always asking what this is for, and they love to run around everywhere. Even taking a bath at night doesn't calm them down. Actually, Leo is a fairly well-behaved little boy, but even so, he still has the nature of a child. Sometimes, if you don't give in to him, he'll cry and fuss loudly. After a day like this, Victor's parents were quite exhausted, and by the time they went to bed, they felt like their whole bodies were falling apart. Accustomed to a life of luxury, this sudden change left them with no choice but to call their son and complain, tears welling up in their eyes. But all they got in return was Victor's question, is taking care of a child really that difficult? Sophia used to take care of two all day. At this moment, Victor had forgotten the fact that she had almost been driven to the brink of collapse after just one morning with Leo. "Old man, why don't we send Leo to Sophia's family tomorrow? After all, they're Leo's maternal grandparents. They can't just sit idly by." Linda rubbed her aching shoulder blades, her eyes starting around, a sly thought forming in her mind. "No way," refused without hesitation. "Leo is our family blood. Sending him to the Sophia family, what kind of talk is that?" "I don't care. If you won't send him to Sophia's family, then you take Leo with you tomorrow. I'm going to the beauty salon with my girlfriends. I haven't been for days, and I've got so many wrinkles." "Nonsense. What kind of man takes care of a child? This is a woman's job." Gorge didn't even lift an eyelid at Linda's persistent insistence. "All right, stop it. I'll help you watch Leo a little more tomorrow." The matter seemed to be settled, but Linda was still dissatisfied. Her resentment towards Sophia grew even stronger. If it weren't for Sophia's insistence on divorce, would she be suffering here now? Having finally raised her son, Linda was now burdened with the responsibility of caring for her grandson, which only fueled her anger. She dared not complain in front of George. Victor felt that everything he did after divorcing Sophia was going awry. He felt constantly irritable, and his work was also struggling. The butterfly effect, a slight change, can drastically alter the course of events. In contrast, in his previous life, Victor had thrived, quickly distinguishing himself at work. His relationship with Chloe had deepened, making them a golden partnership in the business world. No matter the banquet, dinner, or art exhibition Victor attended, she always brought the increasingly assertive Chloe. People around her only knew Chloe's name, having no idea who Victor's wife was. But in this life, Sophia's timely departure had caused such a significant change. Chloe arrived in Shanghai and soon learned of Victor's divorce. At that moment, she felt a sense of fulfillment, no longer needing to secretly observe him. However, Chloe found that the distance between them was growing wider and wider. Now Victor, in a foul mood, had no energy left and deliberately favored Chloe at work. Chloe, whose professional skills were already somewhat lacking, was inevitably suppressed and ostracized among the truly elite professionals. Over time, she was slowly pushed out of the core group. Fortunately, since she was someone Victor had brought from Suzhou, people didn't go too far, merely letting her fade into the background. This made Chloe even more determined to hold on to Victor. When her period was a week late this month, Chloe smiled. Hiding in the bathroom, she took a pregnancy test, and 2 clear lines appeared. In the afternoon, Chloe slammed her leave request on the team leader's desk and declared confidently, "I need to take the afternoon off." The team leader didn't even glance at it, refusing outright. "This is the busiest time for the project. No one is allowed to take leave without a valid reason. Otherwise, you're fired. The company doesn't keep idle people." Even if General Manager Victor were here, I'd still say the same thing. Chloe was enraged and snatched back her leave request. You're something else. Then I'll have General Manager Victor talk to you. After Chloe walked away, the people around her began to whisper among themselves. Everyone knows she's interested in General Manager Victor, and he seems to treat her somewhat well, but nothing too outrageous. How dare she blatantly use General Manager Victor to pressure us? What gives her such confidence? Hearing the whispers around him, the team leader's eyes flickered, and he said calmly, "Get back to work." The people who had been chatting just moments before scattered. The team leader thought for a moment, then looked through the glass window with a deep gaze, watching Chloe carry her small bag out of the company, then take a document from a folder and head towards Vice President Chow's office. Chloe left the company without a second thought. At that moment, only one thing mattered to her. After leaving the company, she went straight to the hospital and had her blood drawn. Only when she received the report did her heart finally settle. She was pregnant, 1 month along. Chloe's excitement and joy were unparalleled. The anxiety and uncertainty caused by Victor's attitude these past few days had subsided. She happily dialed Victor's number. "I have something to tell you. Go back to the company first." Before Chloe could finish, Victor rudely interrupted, briefly stating what she was saying before hanging up, her tone seemingly unfriendly. Chloe assumed that she had been caught leaving her post without permission that afternoon and had been reported to Victor. It wasn't a big deal. At most, she'd get a scolding and have some wages deducted. Chloe happily carried her small bag, humming a pleasant tune, occasionally glancing down at her flat stomach, a smile involuntarily spreading across her face. She imagined several scenarios in her mind. What would happen if Victor found out? When Chloe leisurely arrived at the company, she was directly invited into the conference room by her team leader. In the spacious and bright conference room, besides the 2 vice presidents, the entire project team leader, supervisor, and colleagues were all present. The moment she entered, dozens of eyes turned to Chloe. Even with her strong composure, she still felt uneasy under their gaze. Especially the meaningful smiles from several colleagues she didn't get along with, and the intriguing look from her team leader. Chloe shifted her gaze to Victor, who was sitting in the main seat, but the latter had his head down, his eyes fixed on the documents in front of him, revealing no emotion whatsoever. "Chloe, right, from Project 6? Victor didn't speak. Instead, the vice president sitting to his left spoke first. "Yes, she's from our project team." The team leader, who had previously clashed with Chloe, answered the vice president cautiously and earnestly. Chloe noticed that the team leader's words seemed to carry a special meaning. Many colleagues in the meeting room had strange expressions, their gazes subtly shifting between Victor, the vice president, and the team leader. Victor then raised her head, his cold gaze sweeping over the team leader from head to toe, while the vice president smiled silently and turned away, blocking the team leader's gaze. Chloe wasn't stupid. She now understood the situation. Because of this, she felt a chill run down her spine and frantically looked at Victor. How could this be? The team leader, who had always been neutral and focused solely on project development, had somehow sided with the vice president at this crucial moment. Chloe had a vague suspicion, but she shook her head, vehemently denying it. She dared not think that way. "President Victor, what are your thoughts on Chloe's major oversight in the project?" the vice president asked Victor with a smile. Victor glanced at Chloe with a cold, unfeeling gaze, her words flowing without pause, utterly ruthless. "Since the matter has been investigated, I have nothing more to say. Let's proceed according to the proper procedures." The person described by Victor seemed like a complete stranger. This tone and attitude made Chloe feel as if 1,000 ants were tearing at her heart, an unbearable pain. Hearing Victor's words, the vice president's smile widened further. "I heard that President Victor has a special regard for this little assistant. I'm not that heartless, as long as—" "No need." Victor's face turned even colder, and he stood up abruptly. "She just came with me from Suzhou. I thought she had some potential, but since she's made a mistake, she should be dealt with accordingly." Chloe's heart slowly sank. Initially, thanks to Victor's connection, Chloe had become somewhat arrogant, and now the consequences were showing. None of her colleagues on the project team, with whom she had worked for quite some time, had offered her any sympathy. In truth, this oversight wasn't a huge problem, but it wasn't insignificant either. It all depended on how those above interpreted it. Chloe's previous smugness vanished. She was more worried about Victor's attitude towards her, his recent erratic behavior. However, as her gaze fell on her folded abdomen, her unease slowly subsided. She wasn't afraid. She had something more important. Even losing the job she'd worked so hard for didn't make her feel sad at all. This was the only way Chloe could console herself. In the end, Chloe was dismissed, and Victor was also affected. The temporary downfall of the team leader gave the vice president more influence, creating a power struggle between the two. If this continued, Victor, who had only recently been transferred, would eventually be defeated by the vice president, who had been cultivating his influence in Shanghai for a long time. In the underground parking garage, Victor angrily slammed his fist on the hood of his car, causing the alarm to go off incessantly. Recalling his private conversation with the team leader, all his restraint was overshadowed by anger. "Didn't you say you'd remain neutral? What did the vice president offer you this time?" "Nothing. I approached the vice president myself. My survival instinct told me I should do it." "Why?" "Because of Chloe. My tolerance for her has reached its limit, and she harbors ill will towards me. She's your person. If I don't want to be manipulated by her, I have no choice but to go with the vice president. Although you have more leadership and creativity than him, the vice president is calm and composed, and won't let other factors influence his judgment. I think that makes me feel more at ease." "You think I'd be biased?" "How could I? Perhaps not now, but what about later?" With a meaningful look from the team leader, Victor silently ended the conversation. At this moment, due to various reasons, his relationship with Chloe hadn't become closer after that intimate encounter. Instead, because of work and family troubles, Victor felt as if he had suddenly been bewitched. Now that this has happened, his feelings for Chloe have plummeted to rock bottom. Chloe left the company and didn't go far, waiting in a corner next to Victor's car. Seeing the scene that was tantamount to self-harm, she was secretly shocked and hesitant. But in the end, she mustered up her courage and called out to Victor, who had finished venting his emotions and was about to drive away. "Boss?" Victor looked at him and immediately asked irritably, "What are you doing here?" "I'm sorry." Chloe immediately bowed deeply to Victor at a 180-degree angle, her face pale, apologizing repeatedly. "I didn't want to bother you, but I felt you had the right to know, so I still wanted to tell you." Chloe's voice trembled, and tears streamed down her face, leaving streaks on her fair cheeks, a pitiful sight. "I'm pregnant." Victor was completely stunned, and subconsciously asked, "Whose?" Chloe looked at him with teary eyes, her face filled with disbelief. After a moment of silence, "Mine." "Abort it. I'll make an appointment for you at the hospital." The cold words came straight out of Victor's mouth. He used to like children because they looked cute and endearing. He only needed to take a little time occasionally to play with them. But now, children represented trouble and worries in his eyes, especially an undeveloped embryo that he hadn't expected. Thinking of this, Victor remembered the phone he had silenced. Even though he was so far away from Suzhou, his mother still called more than 10 times a day. She was always complaining that Leo cried, fussed, and was naughty, or that taking care of a child was uncomfortable, restrictive, and tiring. Now even his father was being complained about. "Abort it," Chloe stammered, repeating the two words, her body unsteady, taking a step back, her eyes filled with unfamiliarity towards Victor. The next second, her expression shifted from resentment to determination. "I won't abort it." "You don't want it, but I will. I'll raise it myself. From now on, even if we meet, let's pretend we don't know each other." With that, Chloe covered her face and turned away, giving Victor no time to react. Moments later, Victor, chasing after her, couldn't find Chloe anywhere. Damn it. Sophia was enjoying a very comfortable time with Emma. Adrian was incredibly efficient. After he obtained the ancient prescription, a series of research projects quickly commenced. A month later, when Adrian appeared before Sophia looking disheveled, she almost didn't recognize him. The man before her had a stubble beard, and his unkempt hair obscured his handsome eyes, greasy and shiny. "You're Adrian?" Even the composed Sophia's face twitched slightly in surprise. "Are you experiencing the life of a beggar?" It was hard to imagine someone who usually paid so much attention to his appearance appearing in such a disheveled state. Fortunately, not only Sophia, but others also recognized the person in front of them, otherwise tomorrow's headlines would be dominated by this guy. At this moment, Adrian finally realized his current appearance from Sophia's bright eyes. He seemed to have not washed properly for a month. His original white shirt was covered with some unknown black and yellow stains, wrinkled, and reeked of Chinese medicine mixed with other pungent and unpleasant smells. However, his efforts paid off. In just 1 month, the laboratory produced new results. A highly effective anti-tumor drug that could be mass-produced would be a major innovation in the new world of medicine and would completely change the current landscape of the pharmaceutical industry. As soon as Adrian received the results, he rushed to Sophia's location. He couldn't wait to tell her the good news. Sophia didn't feel much surprise. This was a result she had already calculated in her mind. To be honest, the other person wasn't even the fastest. "I know," Sophia replied indifferently, then moved aside with obvious disgust. "Your appearance is really unsightly." Adrian, who was already dissatisfied with Sophia's indifferent attitude, almost jumped up when he heard her next sentence. Embarrassment and annoyance filled his body. It was too embarrassing. Adrian came like a gust of wind and left even faster than lightning, leaving his assistant, who was accompanying him, stunned. So the president had this side to him. "You, come and take a look at it for me. What do you think of it?" Sophia handed a stack of manuscripts in front of her to Adrian's assistant. "This is a story I just finished. What do you think?" Originally, Sophia intended to fulfill the regrets of the original owner, but who would have thought that she would gradually become engrossed in the process of brainstorming these past few days. Watching a new world created by her under her hands, the sense of satisfaction that arose was irreplaceable. Adrian's capable assistant, a shrewd individual, harbored a desire to please the president's sweetheart. He decided that even if the novel she wrote was utter garbage, he would still sincerely praise it as unparalleled. That's how you have to be shameless. Maybe the president would reward him for his hard work, giving him a promotion and a raise, allowing him to marry a beautiful and wealthy woman and reach the pinnacle of life. But why was the stunningly beautiful, delicate woman in front of him writing a horror novel? And a horror novel with such vivid and lifelike scenes? Oh my God, help. He was so scared. Just from the opening chapter, goosebumps rose all over his body. The immersive experience made his scalp tingle. He almost dropped the manuscript. Then a soft female voice spoke up at the opportune moment. "What, is my writing not good?" "Yes, it's good." The assistant could only grit his teeth and continue reading, his body slowly losing its heat. Squeak. The door was pushed open. The assistant, sweating profusely, jumped up instantly, letting out a terrified cry. Even the slightest noise in the room made him uncomfortable. His heart felt as if it were being gripped by an invisible hand. "What are you yelling about?" Adrian reappeared before Sophia, looking refreshed, glaring angrily at the assistant who had made the inappropriate noise. He only received a grateful look in return. Thank goodness, boss, he had finally escaped that strange feeling. Adrian asked curiously, "What are you doing?" The assistant immediately smiled obsequiously, handing over the manuscript with both hands. "This is Miss Sophia's novel. I think it's very good." Adrian, his face cold, gave the assistant a silent glare before taking the manuscript. He wasn't the first person to see Sophia's novel. "So, do you think it has investment value? I want to take it to a publishing house to see if it can be published." As soon as Sophia finished speaking, Adrian's assistant immediately replied, "Absolutely. I can help with this. I happen to know several editors-in-chief of major publishing houses. The assistant thought to himself. He was startled. He definitely needed to let more people experience what he felt. Mind your own business. I can handle this myself. Adrian, completely lacking any CEO airs, scoffed at his assistant, revealing a threatening smile. Sophia, I haven't seen it before. Would you mind if I took it home to look at today? Of course. The assistant couldn't help but light a candle for his boss. Amen. May God bless you. The next day, Adrian appeared before Sophia with 2 enormous dark circles under his eyes. You stayed up all night reading novels? How was it? Sophia asked, a hint of anticipation in her voice. Adrian shook his head. Not good. Sophia was rather disappointed. After all, this was her first novel, so she naturally had high expectations. No, it's very good. Adrian quickly waved his hands, explaining. What he actually wanted to say was that the dark circles weren't from staying up all night. It was entirely from being scared. He was so scared that he didn't dare sleep with the lights on at night. Who would have thought that the sharp and ruthless President Adrian, a nightmare in the business world, would be afraid of all this supernatural stuff? Adrian gritted his teeth, his face contorted, and said, I've already submitted your manuscript. You'll get a reply in a few days. From now on, my assistant will be in charge of this matter. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, just let me know. He'll definitely do his best. After all, he's my most capable assistant. Adrian sneered inwardly. Yesterday, he dared to pretend he knew nothing. He deserved to be exploited. If it weren't for the fact that the other person was truly talented, he would have fired him immediately. Was the boss's joke so entertaining? All right, I'll wait for your news. Seeing that Sophia seemed to be in a good mood, Adrian changed the subject and tentatively asked, Tonight, I have a banquet, but I need a female companion. Would you be willing to help? Sophia was indeed in a good mood, and considering that Adrian had just helped her, she readily agreed. Adrian was overjoyed, his tense face trembling with barely concealed delight. Don't worry about Emma. My parents love children, especially little girls. They adore them. The banquet will only last 2 or 3 hours. We can ask them to look after Emma then, is that all right? Adrian spoke cautiously, his eyes filled with deep anxiety. Sophia sighed deeply and, seeing Adrian's increasingly tense expression, slowly nodded. Then let's do it your way. The banquet was to be held at a private club in the suburbs of Shanghai. The entire hilltop belonged to the club. Vehicles were restricted from leaving the hilltop, and security was excellent. It was often used for banquets by people of special status. Adrian originally only wanted to hold a simple celebration, but many well-informed people in Shanghai came uninvited, and some of them were people even Adrian couldn't refuse. Sea International had just developed a powerful new drug, which had even alarmed high-ranking officials. Because of this information, many people with connections had already obtained invitations to the banquet, hoping to find out more and make preparations in advance. If the rumors are true, then Sea International and Adrian himself are likely to soar to new heights. Some shrewd individuals even brought their daughters or sisters. It's said that Adrian is still single and doesn't even have a close female companion. When Adrian and Sophia arrived, the foot of the mountain was already filled with luxury cars. Those without invitations were stopped at the foot of the mountain, but they didn't leave. They simply parked their cars nearby, watching the vehicles that were occasionally allowed to pass, their eyes gleaming. Sophia rolled down the car window and glanced out curiously. Why are there so many people? But the scenery and air here are quite nice. Adrian chuckled. If you like it, I'll bring you again next time. The scenery at the top of the mountain is even more beautiful. There's a tea house there, not open to the public except for a few close friends. Coincidentally, the owner of this tea house is a good friend of mine. Sophia and Adrian chatted briefly before following the car in front, slowly passing through the checkpoint. Hey, why doesn't that silver-gray car need an invitation? A dissatisfied voice rang out from the waiting crowd. A man not far away scoffed, rolling his eyes dismissively. You don't know the owner of that car? Such an important matter, and you haven't even found out? What are you doing here? Sightseeing. You. Victor, accompanied by his recently promoted assistant, was also present. Although their company had absolutely no connection to the pharmaceutical industry, this banquet was packed with important figures. One of them was a key figure in the project he was in charge of. He hadn't been able to catch him before, but hearing that this person was also attending the banquet, he had prepared to wait for him here in advance. Victor was confident that once he met him, the other party would be interested in his proposal. "Mr. Victor, look at all these people here with the same purpose as us. I think our trip is a bit risky. I just saw William's car, the one that's always been trying to compete with us. If only we could get into the venue." His assistant muttered dejectedly, but Victor didn't hear a word. His entire attention was drawn to the silver-gray car that had just gone in. He hadn't noticed it before, until he saw two people arguing not far from him, and then he followed his gaze. Through the half-open car window, a beautiful, radiant face, like a star, was revealed, familiar yet strange. Sophia. Why was his ex-wife here, and with that person? Adrian. Someone he still didn't want to mention. Whenever he thought of this person, all his hidden, dark thoughts seemed to immediately become exposed. This person's existence constantly reminded him of the side of himself that was contrary to the sun, uprightness, honesty, and openness. And now these two are together. Victor's face gradually darkened, a storm brewing. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, the veins bulging on the backs of his hands clearly showing the turmoil in his emotions. Adrian had only made a brief appearance at the banquet with Sophia before disappearing again. Many present felt a mixture of envy and jealousy towards Sophia's appearance, all speculating about the relationship between the two. "You really helped me a lot this time. You didn't see it. Some people are like wolves gleaming with green light. I really couldn't resist," Adrian said to Sophia with a grateful smile. Sophia smiled faintly. "Is that so? It's good that I can help you. But there are so many nice girls here, you could consider them too." Even though Sophia hadn't said anything particularly special, Adrian felt a little guilty and turned his head seriously, seemingly focused on driving. "What's so good about those women? They're all ugly. All the famous and beautiful socialites in Shanghai are here tonight. If they knew what you just said, I'm afraid they'd." Sophia rarely teased, "Your ability to make people hate you is getting better and better." When Adrian's car reached the foot of the mountain, it was unexpectedly stopped. "Mr. Adrian, do you need us?" The security personnel at the checkpoint immediately surrounded him. Adrian waved his hand, smiling gently. "No need. This is an acquaintance of mine." The car window rolled down, and Victor's face appeared outside the car, much to Sophia's surprise. But apart from that one emotion, nothing else came to mind. After giving him a casual glance, she turned her head and started fiddling with her nails, as if the person in front of her was a complete stranger. Adrian was quite satisfied with Sophia's attitude at this moment and smiled at Victor, saying, "Long time no see, old classmate." Victor did not answer Adrian's words. His gaze remained fixed on Sophia. He didn't miss a single change in her expression. The tension, unease, guilt, and remorse he had imagined were nowhere to be seen on Sophia's face. Seeing this, Adrian's smile faded, and he moved forward, directly leaning against the car window to block Sophia's view. He didn't like Victor's gaze. With his view blocked, Victor finally turned his gaze to Adrian's face. "How did you two end up together?" Victor's tone was icy. Adrian's handsome peach blossom eyes involuntarily twitched upwards, and he retorted, "Why not? One shouldn't covet a friend's wife." Adrian laughed out loud. "You already have a new love. What face do you have to say that? Do you remember what I told you before I went abroad?" An indescribable sense of embarrassment rose from Victor. He tilted his head, wanting to look at Sophia. Sophia happened to look up, their eyes meeting, her eyes empty, without even a slight fluctuation. Only now did Victor finally realize that Sophia had truly changed, truly become devoid of feelings for him. But he was unwilling to accept it after more than 20 years of relationship. He still loved her. Watching the car gradually disappear into the distance, a storm was brewing in Victor's eyes. "Dad, I found Sophia. She's in Shanghai now." "You've already taken her? It's so late. Why don't you just rest here?" "Emma's getting sleepy." Sophia looked speechlessly at Adrian's mother, at her blatant lying. And then at Emma, who was playing excitedly with Arthur. She didn't know what to say. Adrian's parents both had the air of scholars, even a hint of intellectual aloofness, and didn't seem very approachable. But now, the two elderly people, whose combined age was over 100, were blinking their innocent and expectant eyes at Sophia. Adrian mentally gave his parents a thumbs up for their divine intervention, scratched his head, and said apologetically in a low voice, "These two are really. Isn't it because you never get married? Your dad and I are both over 60. Everyone else has a sweet, soft little girl to hold, but we don't. How can you face us?" Eleanor clutched her chest, directing her anger at her unfortunate son, then happily pulled Sophia's hand, smiling like a wolf in sheep's clothing. "Sophia, Emma really gets along well with us. How about we let her stay here with us for a few days? Emma, would you like to stay here with Grandpa and Grandma for a few days? Grandpa will take you fishing and eating." "Yes. Mom, you go ahead and do your work. Come pick me up when you're done." Sophia was speechless. What a heartless little thing. After Adrian saw Sophia off, Arthur pushed up his glasses and asked his wife probingly, "Is this the reason why this brat refuses to get married?" "That's right, his room is full of photos of this girl, all secretly taken." The next day, Sophia wasn't fully awake yet, but the commotion and banging at the door kept her from sleeping. "Sophia, open the door." The shouts grew louder, and the banging on the door grew even louder. Sophia flung the door open. Her father was still banging on the doorframe, while her mother stood silently to the side, looking travel-worn and holding Leo's hand. Leo was still sleepy, her hair disheveled, and her clothes rumpled, as if she had been dragged out of bed, looking like she hadn't woken up properly. Clearly, the three of them had taken the earliest bus from Suzhou to Shanghai from dawn. Sophia bypassed her father, who was blocking the doorway, and scooped Leo inside, softly asking, "Leo, are you still sleeping a little longer?" Leo nodded groggily, nestled into Sophia's arms, and fell asleep again. Sophia placed the child on her bedroom bed, gently closed the door, and then walked out with a cold expression. She crossed her arms and asked indifferently, "Why are you here?" Sophia's father, who had been restrained by his wife's gentle persuasion, was instantly ignited by Sophia's words. Unexpectedly, he raised his hand to slap Sophia across the face. How could Sophia let that slap land on her face? She swiftly took a step back, and her father's movement missed. "You dare to dodge?" Sophia's father glared with wide, round eyes, his hands trembling, his face filled with grief and indignation. "Did Victor send you here to cause trouble? I had no idea he was so despicable." It was obvious. She had run into Victor last night, and this morning, her parents, who didn't have her contact information, had found her without fail, bringing their son along. Clearly, they were trying to use their family to pressure her. Using this tactic repeatedly, didn't he know it was incredibly annoying? "Yes, my son-in-law said he saw you in Shanghai and was worried we'd be concerned," Margaret said tearfully, her voice tinged with accusation, "and my son-in-law said he saw you very intimately with a man." Before she could finish, Robert interrupted, "Shameless. You've completely disgraced me." Last night's phone call from Victor, half mocking, half accusatory, had left him feeling ashamed and unable to sleep all night. "What son-in-law? I'm divorced from Victor. We have no further connection. Even if you accept him as your son-in-law, I don't acknowledge him." Sophia's cold attitude deeply hurt her parents. "I really don't understand. I am clearly your daughter, so why do you always force and torment me for the sake of outsiders? How can you still be so tolerant and generous in forgiving someone who hurt your daughter? Why is your tolerance and kindness always given to outsiders, and why are you so stingy with even a little bit for your own daughter?" Sophia's words were filled with grief and indignation, all of which were questions that the original owner of this body had never understood. Both were completely stunned by Sophia's question. They had never considered or thought about it before. They had only considered things from their own perspective, simply believing that this was what was best for their daughter, for themselves, and for their family. Sophia calmed herself down and returned to her indifferent state. Leo will stay with me for a while. Mom and Dad, I really feel like I was just a puppet being manipulated by you. Sometimes I wonder why you're different from other parents. I've resented, hated, and felt powerless, but now I understand. Not every parent is good at being a parent. Sophia's last words were thought-provoking, and both couldn't help but reflect that perhaps they had really pushed their child too hard. Did Sophia's parents love her? Of course. They had invested a lot of energy in their daughter. But compared to love, there were probably things more important in their hearts. Sophia's parents sat dejectedly in the living room for a long time, exchanging silent glances. Without a word, they left quietly, leaving a note on the table. It was written by Robert. You're getting old, your wings have hardened, and we, as your parents, can't control you anymore. We only hope you won't regret the path you've chosen. The words still revealed the old man's stubborn refusal to admit defeat. Perhaps he realized something, but he absolutely refused to admit that what he had consistently insisted on was wrong. Meanwhile, Victor, having waited all morning, couldn't wait to call Robert. He desperately wanted to know if Sophia had compromised. Don't call me again. I used to think you were a decent guy, but my daughter gave you 2 children, and you still dared to cheat on her. I'm sorry to her. Now that we're divorced, I can't bear to hear you call me father-in-law. Robert rattled off, then slammed down the phone angrily, giving his former son-in-law no time to speak. Victor never imagined things would end this way. He had always been very good at understanding Sophia's parents' feelings. He wasn't disappointed. Sophia's parents treated him even better than their own son. But this time, they'd lost control. Sophia was furious at Victor's little trick. He was just too idle, that's why he had time to keep an eye on her. Mr. Adrian, the same price. Don't let them be idle. Leo woke up, rubbed her eyes, and the first thing she saw was her mother. She thought she was dreaming. Mommy, my dear baby, you're awake. Leo suddenly threw herself into Sophia's arms. Mommy, can I stay with you forever? Grandma is bad. She always scolds Mommy, and she scolds Sister, and she scolds Leo. Sophia was incredibly angry. She hadn't expected this. She had only let Victor take Leo away because the Victor family loved children. She never imagined they would vent their dissatisfaction with her on the child. Actually, Sophia misunderstood something. The Victor family genuinely loved their grandson, but only if it didn't require them to put in too much effort. The more time Linda cared for Leo, the more resentful she felt. She couldn't bear the fatigue or hardship, and over time, she grew increasingly displeased with Leo, her gentle voice and caring manner disappearing. Upon receiving her son's call, Linda immediately sent Leo to the Sophia family next door, then promptly booked a senior citizen's overseas trip, fearing Leo would be sent back in a few days. Her once beloved grandson had become a burden she desperately wanted to escape. When Adrian arrived with a contract, Leo was eating the incredibly lavish meal Sophia had prepared for him. Uncle Adrian. Little Leo is here. Adrian looked at the child strangely, somewhat puzzled. Previously, Leo hadn't shown any hostility towards him, but she hadn't been particularly affectionate either. This time, however, she greeted him proactively with a big smile, making him feel incredibly flattered. Hey, what brings you here? Here for you. Sophia took the thin sheets of paper from Adrian's hand, a publishing contract. Your book. The Mystery of a Wealthy Family greatly pleased them. They offered you their highest-paying contract. Sophia quickly glanced through it, fully aware of the significant role Adrian had played. As an unknown newcomer, even with a good book, she shouldn't have received such a generous offer. Moreover, every clause in the contract was clearly laid out, without a single trap. It was obvious that it had been reviewed beforehand, with all the favorable terms tilting in her favor. Sophia paused for a moment, finally managing only a week, thank you. Victor had originally intended to visit Sophia, but he was currently tied up with many other matters. When bad luck strikes, even drinking cold water can cause problems. One misfortune after another left Victor overwhelmed, and in just a few days, he looked several years older. The previous cooperation project was shelved, The office struggle with the vice president had escalated into open conflict, and he had made a wrong move. Headquarters were already dissatisfied with him, even questioning his abilities. To make matters worse, Chloe seemed like a completely different person, relentlessly haunting him. Chloe had even brought the matter to the company, a major factor contributing to the change in the upper management's attitude. Victor now practically hated Chloe. Sure enough, just after work, Chloe suddenly appeared from somewhere, blocking the front of his car. Arms crossed, eyebrows raised, she looked very intimidating, a far cry from her previous gentle and delicate self. Or is this her true nature? Victor, are you even a man? How could you treat me like this? Even tigers don't eat their cubs. How could you bear to tell me to abort the child? Anyway, I don't care now. I have a child now, and you're single. I'll give you two choices. Either give me a lot of money, and I'll leave with the child in my belly and never appear before you again, or you marry me and give the baby a home. You choose. Victor was cold and ruthless, his gloomy gaze sweeping over Chloe's slightly protruding belly. I won't choose either. Chloe was actually hoping that Victor would choose the second option. After all, she still had feelings for him. But Victor's attitude was really disappointing. Remembering the advice of the few girlfriends she had recently met, she hardened her heart and said sharply, "Fine, you can choose neither. Then I will continue to cause trouble at the company. Anyway, I have no shame now. I wonder if you have any shame. I can go to your parents, but they wouldn't be as heartless as you, abandoning even their grandson." Victor pondered for a moment with a gloomy face, then said, "I can give you money, but you can't keep this child." Chloe bit her lip, hesitated for a moment, looked at the man emanating coldness in front of her, and finally said with heartache and reluctance, "Deal, but I want 5 million. You really dare to ask for that much?" Victor mocked sarcastically, "At most 500,000, no more. Think carefully. If you're still not satisfied, then even the 500,000 won't be enough. You know my methods." Chloe hesitated, lowered her head, thought for a long time, and then slowly said, Aye. I'll think about it again when I get back." Victor felt like he had been blinded by greed. How could he have been so bewitched by a woman like this, to the point of losing his wife and his family? But the bad luck was yet to come. When Victor went to the company the next day, he was informed that his position had been terminated and that the vice president would be replacing him. He learned through connections that initially, the higher-ups were simply dissatisfied with his recent work, but it wouldn't have warranted his immediate dismissal. However, for some reason, they changed their minds. Finally, a superior at headquarters with a good relationship with Victor subtly told him, "The higher-ups value family harmony, and your recent situation is having a very negative impact on the company's image. Logically speaking, this is your private matter, and it shouldn't even be known to headquarters." Have you offended someone? Victor couldn't really say. Given his current position, there were bound to be many jealous people, and he must have offended many intentionally or unintentionally during his heyday. Right now, the vice president was probably the first person in the company who wanted to drag him down. But things had come to this point, and with Victor's shrewdness, he wouldn't do anything to cause a scene and lose face. Victor, carrying his few remaining office supplies, walked dejectedly out of the company gate, only to run into Chloe, who had come to see him. This time, Victor merely glanced at her and said directly, "Now you can forget about getting even 500,000. I've already been fired from the company." Chloe stared in astonishment, stammering, How is that possible? Did the higher-ups make a mistake?" Victor snorted, completely ignoring the woman. His original ambitions had been crushed in a short time, leaving him utterly devastated. Even with his deepest thoughts, he couldn't bear it, and his mentality began to crumble. Now, he just wanted to figure out why things had developed to this point. As for Chloe, he didn't want to care anymore, let her do whatever she wanted. Chloe stood there stunned, unable to recover for a long time. In her heart, Victor was exceptionally outstanding, the kind of elite man she longed for. That's why she had gone to such lengths to climb onto his pedestal. But only today did she realize that this man she thought was like a god was actually just like any other ordinary man. Suddenly, the mysterious and alluring aura surrounding the other person seemed to have peeled away layer by layer right before her eyes, leaving nothing attractive. Chloe stumbled away. She needed to think carefully about her future path. Afterwards, Victor seemed to be shrouded in misfortune, experiencing a series of setbacks in his career. His perfect resume seemed cursed in Shanghai's financial industry. No company wanted to hire him, and small companies. Victor, who had enjoyed a smooth career since graduating from school, had never considered the possibility of working for a small company. Victor's originally calm and gentle mindset was slowly shattered by the successive blows. When he had fully prepared himself mentally to accept an offer from the company that had previously offered him a job, he was politely rejected again. The financial industry in Shanghai is actually quite small. Victor's previous attitude had spread throughout the industry, and now even small companies were unwilling to hire him. Which boss would want to hire a big shot with an even bigger temper than themselves? When Linda returned from her pleasant vacation abroad, she was greeted by her dejected son and her gloomy husband. Takeout boxes were piled high, the floors and rooms were a mess, and no one had bothered to clean. She could even smell a musty odor. If it weren't for the familiar layout, Linda would have thought she'd entered the wrong house. What's wrong? What happened? Linda asked in surprise, her mouth agape. Son, why are you home? Victor silently smoked, remaining silent in response to his mother's question. George, however, looked up and slapped Linda across the face. Where have you been gallivanting off to? You haven't been home for so long. His violent action instantly awakened a deep-seated fear in Linda. Why? Did he start hitting her again? In his youth, George had violent tendencies, but he had only restrained himself after his son grew up and displayed intelligence beyond his years. If it weren't for that slap, Linda would have almost forgotten that deep-seated fear. Victor silently watched everything unfolding before him through the swirling smoke, his mouth opening and closing several times before turning his head away, ultimately remaining silent. He was currently in a foul mood, a violent emotion with nowhere to vent. Until he witnessed his parents' actions, a twisted sense of pleasure surged within him. He knew his emotions were very wrong. He should have stopped it. A favored son of heaven, who has enjoyed smooth sailing, can easily fall into a mental dead end once he stumbles into adversity, unable to escape. This is why history is full of geniuses who fall from grace. Victor's current state is somewhat similar to this. My girlfriends invited me to go on a trip with them. Linda covered her face, her eyes full of disappointment in her son, and explained in a low voice, I told you before, and you agreed, so I went. What, you dare to talk back now? George raised his hand as if to strike again, but Victor still raised his hand to block him. All right, what's the use of hitting mother? By the way, where's Leo? Victor suddenly asked. Leo isn't with you? It was too absurd. Only now, after several months, did the three members of the Victor family realize that their son/grandson was missing. No. Wasn't it just that Sophia's family was supposed to take care of him temporarily for a while? Victor shouted irritably, It's only for a few days. I didn't say Leo would stay at Sophia's family's place permanently. You spendthrift woman, I thought you took your grandson out to play with me since you weren't taking good care of him. As George spoke, his iron-like hand started to itch again, but he glanced at his son and managed to hold back. How many times have I told you, Leo's surname is our grandson, you go next door right now and bring Leo back. However, Victor's family overlooked one crucial point. Despite living so close to Sophia's family, they hadn't even seen Leo in the past few months, let alone the Sophia's family elders who frequented their home daily. Sure enough, when Linda, seething with anger, pounded on the Sophia family's door, there was no response. Instead, she attracted the attention of the upstairs neighbors. George, are you looking for Robert and his wife? Yes. Upon seeing her neighbor, Linda instinctively turned away, hiding her still swollen face in the shadows. Suddenly intrigued, the neighbor leaned closer to Linda, winking and exclaiming in surprise, You didn't know. Linda disliked the neighbor's tone but suppressed her anger, asking, No what? Sophia's family moved to the countryside, saying their elderly relatives aren't well and they went back to take care of them. Your two families have always been close. Why didn't they even tell you? Linda forced a smile. This. Look at my memory, I forgot. Victor and Sophia are divorced. Then, this intriguing neighbor leaned even closer, whispering in her ear in a voice loud enough for people several floors away. I heard your Victor cheated on you? Nonsense. Who said that? I'll tear their mouth apart. Linda glared at the neighbor, shoving her away angrily. The saying goes, don't wash your dirty linen in public. They had kept their son's divorce a closely guarded secret. Could it have been Sophia's family next door who leaked it? The neighbor didn't seem to mind Linda's attitude, still smiling and saying, don't bother hiding it anymore. Everyone in the building knows. Don't even think about it. It wasn't Sophia's parents who said it. It was the William daughter upstairs who went to Victor's old company after graduation. She told her family. She said Victor lost his job because of that mistress. Linda's face flushed. She wished she could disappear into the ground, filled with hatred for William's daughter upstairs. I'm going back. Linda couldn't stand it any longer and turned to run back. Hey Linda, what happened to your face? Back home, ignoring the pain on her face and her panic, Linda rushed to Victor, anxiously asking, you lost your job? Upon hearing this, Victor forcefully threw away the ashtray in his hand. Linda was so frightened her heart almost stopped. Many questions swirled in her mind, but she dared not voice them. She quickly reassured him, don't be angry, Mom won't ask anymore. My son is capable here. This company has no vision. We can find another one. Where's Leo? Linda glanced guiltily at the two people opposite her. No one from the Sophia family is here. I heard they moved to the countryside. Don't worry, I'll go find them. We can't let those people have their eyes on our family's grandson. However, things didn't go as they wished. They didn't even know where the Sophia family's ancestral home was, let alone how to find out. Victor was dejected for a long time. Finally, before his parents could persuade him, he tidied himself up and started sending out resumes in Suzhou again. But all these resumes disappeared without a trace. George used many connections, but it didn't help Victor at all. When he got home, he was furious again. These colleagues, who all lived in the same building, showed no regard for their past friendship. Asking them for a small favor was met with endless evasions. The other neighbors in the building were also gossiping about their family. George thinks he's something special, acting all high and mighty when asking for help. Who owes him anything? That's right. Before, everyone gave in to Robert's sake, but that's no excuse for him to take advantage. Well, now that George and his family are at odds, everyone should just stay away from them. To be honest, it's a pity about George's daughter. I don't know what he was thinking, so determined to become in-laws with their family. The neighbors' gossip somehow reached Victor's ears, and he couldn't stand staying in this neighborhood anymore. Finally, fueled by a deep-seated resentment that gnawed at his heart every day, he decided to go find Sophia. If he could find Sophia, they could start over and everything would be back to normal. But now, Sophia was not someone Victor could just see whenever he wanted. Sophia is incredibly busy right now. Leo and Emma have been taken over by Adrian's parents. Her novel, The Mystery of a Wealthy Family, unexpectedly became a bestseller this year. It went through several reprints and bookstores were always short of stock. Sophia's name became a household name in the literary world. Her excellent writing, well-developed characters, suspenseful and thrilling plot, and masterful emotional control propelled the book to phenomenal success. Riding this wave of popularity, Sophia wrote a second book, even more captivating than the first. These two books made Sophia a literary icon, leading to numerous film and television adaptations and game adaptations. While fame brings many benefits, it also has its drawbacks. Sophia no longer lives in her original place. She moved to a more secure neighborhood, not far from Adrian's parents' villa. This was Adrian's blatant selfishness, but the house was truly excellent, and she could afford it, so she let him have his way. Victor came to Shanghai to find Sophia, only to be turned away. Filled with jealousy and resentment, he went to look for Adrian, but was also turned away at the door. not even seeing a trace of him. Then he saw a magnified image of Sophia on the large screen in the center of the square. Famous suspense and thriller author, stunning and beautiful, book signing event, Sophia. Victor could no longer reconcile the stunningly beautiful woman on the screen with the image of his ex-wife. He couldn't deny that after leaving him, she had risen like a phoenix from the ashes, finally unleashing her unique and unparalleled charm. She was doing better and better, while he was utterly destitute. This forced him to admit that all these years, he had been consciously or unconsciously suppressing Sophia. From childhood, Sophia had always been more outstanding than him. So he felt both fearful and resentful. Remember when Sophia won first place in the essay competition again? He deliberately pretended to catch a cold, causing her to forfeit her chance to participate in the finals. Faced with such an outstanding girl, his choice was to pull her down from her pedestal so that he could stand on it himself. At that time, Victor always wondered why Sophia had to be so outstanding, why she couldn't be more ordinary like other women. But when Sophia truly returned to ordinariness, he complained that her soul wasn't interesting enough. The inherent flaws of men. Victor looked up at Sophia's large image with self-deprecation, laughed a few times, and turned to leave. "Let's move." Victor, even more listless than before, returned home and said his first words to his parents, shocking them like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. "Move? Why? We're perfectly happy here." Linda was reluctant. Although it was an old neighborhood, the environment was nice, and they had grown attached to it after living here for so many years. "Move, it's up to our son." George made the final decision. Although he didn't really want to move either, he didn't want to listen to the gossip every day. He had been proud for half his life, and now, in his old age, he didn't want to suffer like this. "Sell this place and sell our son's old wedding house too. We'll add some money and buy a nicer, bigger one so our whole family can live together." Victor didn't object to his father's words. He didn't want to live in his old wedding house with Sophia anymore. However, house prices were rising year after year compared to a few years ago. The new house wasn't much bigger than the old one, but the price was more than double. The elderly couple had poured all their savings into the money, barely enough to make ends meet. Victor still had some money, but he planned to use it to start a business. However, before he could put this idea into action, a court summons arrived first. "This is outrageous. Tomorrow we'll go find Sophia's parents. They raised such a good daughter. It wasn't enough that she ruined my son. She dares to try and take custody of Leo." Linda tore the summons to shreds. Victor's gloomy gaze immediately shifted from the shredded paper on the ground to Linda. Unaware of her surroundings, Linda continued to curse and rant, cursing Sophia and her family. Enough. Victor's face turned ashen, and in a fit of rage, he smashed everything they had just bought for their new home to pieces. Linda was stunned, cowering in a corner, but George pulled her out and slapped her across the face several times. "I told you not to upset our son lately. Are you deaf? I. Still not figuring out a solution? No matter what means, Leo is the root of our family, and no one can take him away. But things never go according to anyone's wishes." No matter how angry or resentful they were, the court date on the summons arrived. Victor still hoped to see Sophia at this moment, but Sophia herself did not appear, and the entire process was handled by a lawyer. At this moment, Victor and Sophia's situations seemed to have reversed. One was in heaven, the other in hell. The judge quickly ruled that Sophia had custody of Leo, and Victor's family's resentment was futile. After this incident, the Victor's family was in an uproar for a while. However, all of this had nothing to do with Sophia. Sophia also knew that her parents had moved to the countryside, but she did not appear in front of them. She just regularly sent living expenses to their accounts every month. And Leo and Emma would be taken back to show the two elderly people. Sophia felt that this distance was just right. Over time, Sophia's parents' resentment towards her diminished considerably. Every time the two little ones came over, they would subtly inquire about their daughter. "My mom is amazing. So many people like her." Yes. They all say mom's books are good, but Daddy Adrian never reads them to me." Leo and Emma mumbled between bites of food, their words filled with admiration for Sophia. In their eyes, their mother was incredibly talented. Kindergarten teachers and other children's parents, knowing they were Sophia's kids, would smile especially brightly and even give them sticky notes to have their mother sign. Sophia's writing is very popular now. Many people really like it. Adrian added from the side. Previously, Leo and Emma had been accompanied by a caregiver when they came to the countryside, but now Adrian volunteered to accompany them every time. The Sophia parents' scrutinizing gaze swept over Adrian from head to toe like rays of light. Their conversation was casual and indifferent, but Adrian remained a gentleman, showing great respect to the two elders. So now he was able to chime in a few words. Sophia used to really enjoy writing. She even wanted to major in literature after the college entrance exam. Margaret said, glancing at her husband beside her, her voice lowering considerably, but we thought finance was a better major. Robert silently bowed, stood up, and turned to walk into the room. At that moment, an overwhelming sense of regret welled up inside him. He had never truly understood what his daughter wanted most, always forcefully shoving his own desires into her arms. In the end, his daughter had gotten what she wanted. A writer. Robert felt a mixture of joy and bitterness. They had been thinking and thinking these past few days, finally understanding, but the chasm between them and their daughter could never be bridged. Looking at her husband's hunched back, Margaret felt a pang of sadness. She forced a smile and whispered to Leo and Emma, "If you have time, have your mother come visit Grandpa and Grandma. We miss them terribly." Turning to Adrian, she said, "You're a good person. Be good to Sophia from now on." Compared to Adrian's recent attentiveness, Margaret finally understood how inadequate Victor had been as a son-in-law, father, and husband. Adrian could only manage a bitter smile. "Sophia and I are just very good friends." Margaret smiled but remained silent. Sophia felt that this life was peaceful and serene, with children, friends, and doing what she loved. Until the end of her life, Sophia and Adrian were never together. Although they weren't together, in the eyes of others, they were clearly a couple. Leo and Emma even secretly called Adrian Dad behind Sophia's back. Sometimes they would ask their mothers. Adrian's father has always been by her side. With his status and position, he has never had any scandals and has always loved and protected her wholeheartedly. Why doesn't she accept him? At that time, Sophia simply smiled faintly and said, "I don't love Adrian, and he doesn't love me either. There's no love between us." Leo and Emma were completely confused. Their relationship had always been praised by everyone. Everyone said that because of Sophia and Adrian, they believed in love again. How could their mother think that way? Even Uncle Adrian smiled when he heard this. But there seemed to be something else in that smile. Victor's side story. Victor felt his life was a joke. The first half of his life was full of success. The second half was full of hardship and poverty. When did his misfortunes begin? It seemed to be after his divorce from his ex-wife, Sophia. Perhaps Sophia really was his benefactor. It's said that some people are born to bring good fortune to their husbands. Now she's a famous writer, and she's deeply attracted to Adrian. Everyone says they're a match made in heaven, and who remembers his ex-husband? Before, people said he and Sophia were a perfect couple. If he hadn't made a mistake, would he be standing at the top now, receiving everyone's blessings? Hurry up, dinner's ready. What are you daydreaming about? What bad luck. How did I marry such a useless man? You always need someone to help you get anything done. Even eating requires being called. A rude and irritating female voice came from the kitchen, her mouth chattering incessantly from the beginning. Victor frowned in disgust, snapping out of his reverie. He slowly strolled towards the living room. Their current apartment was a damp, dark, cramped tenement building, poorly lit, requiring lights even at midday. Having lived there for a long time, Victor still hadn't gotten used to the environment, his eyes filled with disdain for everything around him. The woman in the kitchen, carrying dishes, happened to see Victor's behavior. She immediately threw off her apron, put her hands on her hips, and began to berate Victor. "What? Who are you trying to impress with that deadpan face? If it weren't for you, would I be in this state? This woman, hands on her hips, was none other than Chloe from before, but now, all traces of her former charming and gentle demeanor were gone. Upon hearing this, Victor also became furious, scoffing, "Why don't you say it's your own fault?" "My own fault? Wasn't it you who planted the seed? If you hadn't gotten me pregnant and refused to take responsibility, I wouldn't have needed an abortion. If I hadn't had an abortion, I wouldn't have suffered severe bleeding and had my uterus removed." Victor didn't accept this accusation. "Why don't you say that all of this was your meticulously planned scheme? You ruined my family and career, you caused my divorce and separation from my family, and you still dare to accuse me like a victim? Chloe, you're a shameless woman." Chloe and Victor were arguing like shrewish women in the street, using all sorts of vulgar language. "Don't think I don't know. You later went with several men, and you couldn't stand being beaten by their wives, so you came to me to take over. You know." Chloe's voice immediately lowered, quite guilty. But then she became defiant. "You're just using me, finding a maid to serve two old hags. I truly regret it. How could I have been so foolish as to get involved with you?" Victor was filled with remorse, the images of Sophia and the children haunting his mind. Chloe wasn't to be outdone. "Do you think I don't regret it?" The two started arguing, their words escalating to physical fights. This kind of scene played out daily in the small house. Before, Victor had harbored ambitions to start a business with his savings, to give it his all. But before things had even started to look promising, Chloe showed up again. Her persistent pestering and fawning over his parents had, unknowingly, allowed her to intrude into the family again. Victor initially thought that while this woman might not have many other skills, her ability to humble herself and shamelessly please his parents was somewhat useful, so he turned a blind eye. Who would have thought that his second failure would also be ruined by Chloe? Having endured this for so long, Chloe seized the opportunity to abscond with the payment from Victor's new company and also sold the company's confidential information. This time, the Victor family was truly at their wits' end. They sold their house and borrowed money to barely fill the hole. Both Victor's parents were so enraged that they were hospitalized, and after being discharged, they remained bedridden for a short time before passing away. After squandering all the money, Chloe even had the audacity to return to Victor, feigning misery. Victor hated her intensely and almost strangled her. But now he had nothing left, so it was better to keep her by his side and torment her for the rest of her life. Now, Victor and Chloe were utterly resentful, tormenting each other, yet neither mentioned separating again. Famous writer Ms. Sophia and her children visit starry Sky House. The news suddenly broadcast on television startled Victor, who was still trembling with Chloe, causing him to momentarily lose his composure and accidentally inflict several bloody scratches on his face. Victor let Chloe shower him with affection, staring blankly at the television. Many years had passed, and his children had grown up. Sophia had raised them well. Time had also been exceptionally kind to Sophia. The years had left almost no trace on her. Compared to her youth, Sophia possessed an elegant and intellectual charm honed by time. Chloe noticed his unusual expression and also turned her gaze to the television. The woman on TV was someone she had once despised, but now, the images on the screen filled her with a sense of shame and embarrassment. "What, still thinking about your ex-wife? But she probably doesn't even want to see you anymore." Everyone says that Sophia and C's president, Adrian, are truly in love. Although they're not officially married, President Adrian has rejected many temptations for Sophia. Sophia is so lucky. She left a failure like you and gained one of the most devoted men in the world. Chloe spoke, her jealousy practically tangible. Why wasn't she the lucky woman? After years of tormenting each other, Chloe truly knew how to swiftly and accurately strike at the heart of the other's pain. Victor, who had been staring blankly and lost in thought, intently imagining the person on TV, was pierced through the core by Chloe's words. "Shut up!" He roared like a raging lion, his eyes red. Seeing Victor like this, Chloe was somewhat frightened. But the satisfaction of humiliating him made her relentlessly attack. "That's just how it is, and you won't even let me say it." Look at you now, you're no different from a rat hiding in the sewers. You probably don't even have the courage to appear in front of Sophia and your 2 children, let alone compare yourself to someone like President Adrian. I told you to stop talking. Victor frantically tried to stop Chloe from continuing, and finally, Chloe's voice did indeed disappear from the room. But when Victor came to his senses, panting heavily, he found Chloe's lifeless body lying beside him. A distinct purplish-blue mark remained on her neck, a shocking sight. In the epilogue of Adrian's story, Adrian, lying on a ventilator in his hospital bed, on the verge of death, used all his remaining strength to slowly remove his medical equipment. His lips opened and closed several times, his eyes fixed intently on Sophia, who was sitting beside him, holding his hand. "Dad, Adrian, is there something you want to say to Mom?" Adrian nodded vigorously. "Yes." "Then let's both go out first." Soon, only Sophia and Adrian remained in the room. Both of them were now very old. Adrian squeezed Sophia's hand tightly, his voice choked with gratitude as he said, "Thank you for fulfilling one of my dreams. I know you're not her." "Sophia, I know you've known for a long time that I'm not her." "Yes, how could I not know? But I've never dared to confirm it with you. I was afraid, until now. I've been deceiving myself, just watching you live vividly before my eyes. At least I can convince myself that you're still here, still sharing the same sky and breathing the same air as me. Am I a coward?" "Sophia, no, you're not a coward." "Adrian, don't comfort me. I know I've always been a coward. If I had been brave enough to pursue her back then, perhaps the ending would have been different." Adrian's eyes were filled with regret, and tears slowly welled up in his dark eyes. "Is she all right?" "Sophia, she'll be fine. You know, I got involved in Victor's matter. Will she hate me? After all, he's someone she loved deeply, and the father of Leo and Emma." Adrian raised his wrinkled face, saying with a mixture of regret and frustration, "But even if she hates me because of this, I'll still do it. How can I let go of someone who hurt her? I only hate that I didn't do enough. I'm still afraid she'll be angry." Suddenly, Adrian seemed to have a sudden burst of energy. His spirits lifted, and he smiled at Sophia. "In the next life, I will definitely not let her go to anyone else." As he finished speaking, the light in Adrian's eyes slowly faded. Sophia looked at him quietly for a long time, then stood up, opened the door to the ward, and let a series of doctors and nurses in. Leo and Emma were waiting outside. Upon seeing this, Emma's tears streamed down her face. But what they were more worried about at this moment was Sophia's physical and mental health. At this moment, Sophia's expression was incredibly calm, barely revealing her underlying sadness. She smiled reassuringly at the 2 children. "Don't worry, I'm fine. I'll go back and rest for a bit. His funeral is your responsibility." Throughout his life, Adrian had stayed by Sophia's side, never marrying or having children. However, in the hearts of Sophia's 2 children, Adrian had long since become like a father to them. But after Sophia went back to bed, she never woke up again. Less than an hour after Adrian left, Sophia followed suit, without illness or injury.